Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto teleported in ponytails and got harem? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Sakura Demon Alchemist for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. When people would later look back at what started it all, the blame would entirely be laid on Anko's uncaring feet. What could Anko do that hadn't already been done before to the little Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko? Simple. She taught him all the hand signs for the summoning and forgot to mention that he would need a contract with a clan in order for it to work. Learning the signs before signing a contract was extremely dangerous, idiotic, and considered suicidal at best. The reason being that an unbound summoner attempting to call forth an ally without a contract can bring out unspeakable horrors or deadly demons. This was also a theory behind why Guy had no fashion sense, and that was horrifying, which required two people to fully activate. So, being the lonely and curious child he was, Naruto remembered the signs, and after he had a moment to himself, performed the summoning in a forested area that the Anbu rarely went into. Luckily for Konoha and Naruto, the being he summoned wasn't interested in devouring all humanity or in complete and utter domination. Unfortunately, she was interested in turning Konoha on its head purely out of boredom and spite. Naruto had summoned the soon-to-be queen of the changelings, and all hell was about to break loose. Naruto stared at the odd horse thing with horn and what appeared to be bug-like wings. Said horse thing stared back. "Who are you?" they said in unison. "I asked first." They said they were annoyed. "Hey. Stop copying me already," they shouted. The horse thing got annoyed to the point she whacked him on the head with her hoof. At least Naruto assumed it was a hoof that had holes in it. Ahem. Now, as I was saying, who are you and where did you get our contract? Contract? You need a contract to summon, said Naruto, confused. The horse blinked. You mean you? Do you have any idea how dangerous it is to do an unbound summons? You could get a tentacle demon for all you know. The nice Anbu lady never mentioned contracts. Whatever, I suppose. If you like, you can sign my contract so you don't accidentally destroy all life on this planet by mistake. My name is Chrysalis, and I am the next in line to become Changeling Queen. And you are? Uzumaki Naruto. I'm going to be the next Hokage, believe it. How nice. Here's the contract, she said, pulling out a scroll from who knows where. Oh, what do I do? I forgot this is your first summoning. Open up the scroll and sign your name. Then with the hand you signed with, put your fingerprints and blood under the name. This ensures that the next time you summon you will either get me, or once I become queen, one of my minions. Uzumaki Naruto here out, concentrating so his writing wasn't too sloppy. Then he placed a bloody handprint on the scroll under his name, and the changeling rolled it up. Congratulations, you are now our first summoner. I'm going to be busy for the next few months, but after that you can summon me whenever you like. Okay. 4 months later. Naruto was bored, and when he was bored he did stupid things. Remembering Chrysalis's warning, he never bothered to contact her for the past few months. Though to Anko's credit, she did remember to warn him about trying to summon without a contract a week after his first attempt. Finding out he had made a new one with some sort of horse that was very intelligent did little to soothe her concerns, since he was told not to summon for a few months. But today he had the feeling he wouldn't make Chrysalis mad if he summoned her again. So, he did, in his apartment. Chrysalis looked amused, but not angry. Well, I was wondering if you would summon me again. What do you need help with? She asked. Nothing really, but I was bored, and I figured learning more about changelings would be more interesting than my homework, admitted Naruto. Such an honest boy. Alright then, what do you want to know? Naruto looked at her, then realized what was different. Is that a crown on your head? Yes, it is. It means I took over the position as queen and devoured the old one. I get all the memories of the past queens and a power boost. Plus the ability to see and hear everything the drones hear. Cool. Sounds kinda like a bug, said Naruto eagerly. He was a 7-year-old boy. Of course he would find devouring and taking control of an army of minions awesome. Especially when they were as odd-looking as Chrysalis. Yes, well, changelings do tend to have hive minds like bees, for instance. Ask away, said Chrysalis, amused. And so Naruto did. He learned everything he could about changelings, since he was obviously going to be working with them quite a bit from now on. One of the things he learned was that the reason they were called changelings was because of their ability to transform into anyone they wanted to, right down to their voice and mannerisms. Though that last bit did take a bit of time to observe. In a bit of fun, Chrysalis observed Naruto for 2 full days before taking his place in an exam. And she left the academy seething while Naruto waited in his apartment with a minor changeling. Oddly enough, he could understand them in their natural state. You neglected to mention that the academy teachers barring one all treated you like some sort of leper. You get used to it, shrugged Naruto. It is simply unacceptable. Where are your school books? She demanded. She liked their new summoner and she refused to allow his natural intelligence to be ruined by these third-rate monkeys. Naruto pointed to a small bookshelf and her rage only grew as she read them. Deplorable. They have all been heavily altered and are clearly out of date. If you wait here I'll retrieve new books for you since your teachers clearly can't be bothered to, said Chrysalis. Naruto handed over his frog wallet which soothed her anger somewhat and she turned into a copy of Sasuke Uchiha. It was a simple enough plan. Even if she was discovered she would claim to be under a hinge and didn't want her parents to learn she had ruined all her school books. Blaming their loss on a misused fire was the perfect cover and the Uchiha were well known for being pyromaniacs in training. Half an hour later she returned with a new set of books, all brand new along with a few others. Namely elemental training scrolls. This little adventure led to another, in which Chrysalis turned into a random genin and went grocery shopping. The shopkeepers didn't think twice, believing that they were on a drink and had split up from each other to cover more ground. Anko's first meeting with Chrysalis was during her assigned slot in guarding Naruto. She was the first and only person to actually catch the transformation and her curiosity won out. Finding that the Fox Kid had managed to get a summoning contract as useful as this really impressed the Snake Mistress. It also helped him get around the store owner's unofficial ban on anything Naruto without them knowing. She was too amused by the charade to ruin it, though she did caution Naruto to at least warn the Hokage about it. Sarutobi Hiruzen was just as amused seeing as he hadn't caught on to it and probably wouldn't have had Anko not convinced Naruto to at least fess up to the one person who could really ruin it for them and agreed to let it continue so long as Chrysalis didn't mind having one of her changelings as a transfer student at the academy. Considering how bored she had become since taking over as queen, she had opted to act as a human girl herself. It would make the class uneven, but who cared about that anyway? Iruka didn't know what to think about the transfer, only that something about the girl amused the Hokage greatly. Everyone, we have a new student joining us. Come in please. The girl with straight lime green hair, green blue eyes, and the oddest hair accessory the girls had ever seen came in. She wore mostly dark green clothing that could be mistaken for black and shoes that were perfect for running. Hello everyone. My name is Chrissy Hive. Chrissy was the nickname Naruto had given her since he claimed Chrysalis was too long and was nearly impossible for him to spell right. He usually just called her Cries though. Cries sat next to Shino, who seemed to take an interest in her. One short confrontation with a bug user later and the Aburame approached Naruto the next morning in hopes for an alliance. Apparently Shino's hive recognized what Chrysalis was or at least knew she was a queen bee in a manner of speaking and he hoped to earn a chance at her summoning contract when he realized what she was. Befriending the village pariah was a small price to pay if it meant getting a chance at a contract like the changelings, who were so similar to bugs that it made the Aburame clan drool. Well, that and once Shino actually got to know Naruto he realized the boy wasn't that bad a friend, just a bit too loud. And he was the only one to see Cry's daring plan to get more books for Naruto to read. She simply acted like she stole the card from Naruto and the librarian was all too happy to give her whatever book she wanted from the shelf. Even those only available to the upper years. Cries acted like Naruto's bully in order to keep him ahead of the class. Though she did have to explain the situation to Hinata, who appeared to be the only girl willing to give him a chance. Anko was sitting next to a bored Chrysalis who was in adult form. I don't get it. How the hell are you able to pay for all those books on an orphan stipend? She asked, drinking her sake. Simple. You know that building about a block from Naruto's apartment? Which one? Asked Anko. The one with the butterfly on the sign. Keen? Said Anko in shock. It was easy to forget that Naruto lived a few blocks from the red lights district. That kid knew more about the birds and the bees and the female anatomy than any other child his age. He was already on his way to create a perverted hinge to prank people with. Yes, that one. Never really bothered to learn the name and the woman in charge was absolutely delighted to let me join them. Anko stared at the odd summon. You work at Keen? Mostly at night while Naruto is working on his homework. He does both of ours since they generally give him work from a year above his, but they never do the same to me. He doesn't really care because I tend to pay for ramen whenever his stipend runs out. Won't your people consider working at a place like that degrading? Said Anko, thinking of how many civilian women hated those places, never mind the noble ones who were worse. Chrysalis looked at her amused. My dear Anko, I rule over them. Why should they care if I chose to dance? Besides, my people don't normally wear clothes to begin with. Only certain occasions warrant wearing anything, said Chrysalis. Which was true. She would quickly lose count of the ponies who walked around in nothing but their fur, Celestia among them. That reminds me, why the hell are you out so often in our world? Don't queens normally, I don't know, rule over their people by actually being there? Chrysalis snorted. First off, changelings are more like bees than anything, particularly if the Aburam clan is correct when they assess our capabilities. We can take the form of anything we wish, though behavior would have to be studied just so we don't get busted too quickly. Your Hokage hat Naruto summons over 100 of my minions as spies, and I make weekly reports on all the nations for him in exchange for not informing the council of my existence. My primary concern as Queen of the Changelings is to feed my subjects, and since this place has enough to live off of until I find a better option, the hive could care less. How do you guys feed anyway? Chrysalis's grin did not inspire pleasant thoughts in Anko. In fact, she almost wanted to run from it. Want me to show you? Anko would later report her findings to the Hokage, though she would be exhausted during her report. Apparently changelings were the insect horse equivalent of succubus and incubus, and while physical contact wasn't really necessary, it did make things a little easier. Part of the reason why Chrysalis worked a keen. Lust wasn't too different from love after all. Plus it meant she could leave Naruto alone whenever she was really hungry. Naruto was beyond pissed. This was his second try at the Genin exam, and once again he failed because of this. Cries had gone in before him and simply summoned a few of her minions as a substitute, but he couldn't do the same without getting busted. He didn't want anyone to know Cries, and several others were in fact summons that could change form. Hell, the Hokage had kept it from everyone because Cries made regular reports that apparently trumped their best spy masters. Jiraiya hadn't been pleased when he learned that Sarutobi had a new method of gaining information that beat his. On the plus side, he now had more time to focus on his porn books. Fortunately, the old man promised to put them on the same team, since Chrysalis seemed to be the only one who could keep him calm. So, he complained to the Hokage, and after a demonstration he got a single from the big scroll that the old man guarded. Something about how the inside was a bigger pain to use on the field than dangerous. Apparently most were quite chakra intense, and they weren't capable of handling it regularly. At least without a ton of high-quality chakra pills and a long stay at the hospital after. Chrysalis had taken only one look at Naruto's clone army before she started to teach them something he was lacking. How to direct an army of identical minions into cohesive groups. She wasn't the least bit surprised when they discovered that the clone sent back any memories once dispelled. Apparently it was part of the reason why she had been chosen to become his summon instead of someone else. Naruto was ready for the final exam. If he screwed this up, he wouldn't get a fourth chance. The tap-out age was 14, and he turned 14 next year. What he wasn't aware of, but Chrysalis was that even if he failed, Anko planned to make him her apprentice by passing the entire Genin exam. It was the Hokage's agreed fail-safe, since he didn't know whether or not a chakra restriction seal would work on Naruto, considering he contained the Kyuubi. He went in, performed the first two perfectly, and then for some reason failed the shadow clone, which he had been doing almost instinctively at Cry's suggestion. The clones didn't like being used to ditch class, but like Chrysalis gleefully pointed out, they didn't have a choice in the matter. She apparently viewed the clones to be on the same level as her drones, to the amusement of those in the know. Too bad she could only take her true form in Naruto's apartment. Acting like a human was a pain in the ass sometimes. Iruka looked disappointed, but then he didn't know Naruto knew about shadow clones either. He reluctantly failed Naruto, though his face suggested he wanted the boy to pass. Cries frowned when he walked out, having spotted something that didn't belong. She leaned next to Shino, who looked where her eyes landed and his own went up. "Uzumaki, it appears someone has placed a chakra restriction seal on your shoulder," said Shino blandly. He wouldn't have noticed it, but Cries did because she was so in tune with Naruto's chakra. She even knew he had a secondary system, though she had no idea why. "Huh? What the hell? No wonder it was screwed up," said Naruto loudly. He half planned to go back in there and demand a retake, since his chakra network was screwed up thanks to the seal. Shino shook his head. Demanding a retake might end badly, considering most of the teachers dislike Naruto. "Someone has tampered with Naruto's test. He came out with a chakra restriction seal on his collar," said Chrysalis coldly. The day was one of the days she had to return home to sort out any issues that had cropped up. The problem being that her spies had to join her so they wouldn't forget what they were, meaning she would have to spend an entire 2 days at home sorting out the memories. Which left Naruto vulnerable. Sarutobi puffed on his pipe and thought. Unless there was a traitor in the academy, there was little he could do about the test. Naruto wasn't there yet, having been held back by Mizuki. Suddenly the door opened revealing the blonde menace. "Mizuki-sensei held me back and mentioned a secondary genin test. He told me to steal the big scroll from the office and bring it to him," said Naruto. "There is no secondary genin exam," said Sarutobi. "Which is why I came straight to you. Do you have any problems with me sending the clone army against the traitor in exchange for another look at the scroll?" asked Naruto. Sarutobi rubbed his chin. Proving he was a traitor would give me all the reason I would need to have a retake of the exams, and I know I can trust you not to use the techniques on the scroll on the villagers. And it would give me a chance to watch you use those lessons of mine into practice, said Cries. When she learned of how similar clones were to her hive, she had begun instructing Naruto how to direct them much as a changeling queen would her minions. The clones weren't happy about it, but they didn't have any say in the matter, since a good hit would dispel them anyway. The end result of Naruto using them like that had been the shattering of his psyche, but that was something Naruto didn't care about anyway. He now had a slight multiple personality disorder when the clones were out, but that was such a small thing compared to dealing with the odd red-eyed clone that tried to cause trouble. Chrysalis still had no idea why that one kept popping up. Naruto, do try to leave him alive, won't you? We'll need to find out who he's working for after all, said Sarutobi. Will do, Gigi, said Naruto. Chrysalis came back from Equestria only to learn that Naruto finally had an answer for that odd red-eyed clone that occasionally appeared. He was the host of the Kyuubi no Yoko, the nine-tailed fox that had nearly destroyed the village 13 years prior. On the plus side, Naruto now had an interesting trick he could use with his clone army. He could now make them explode. Sarutobi would have pitied whatever ended up with Naruto if it wasn't for the fact Kakashi had specifically requested the boy. Instead he pitied the Uchiha and Haruno. He couldn't see those two working with the boy unless forced, and once they realized the damage Naruto's clones could cause they would have to shape up and fast. Frankly, he couldn't wait to see that show. Well, now that we have a name for the odd red clone, I think it's time we got some answers, said Cries, sitting in Naruto's house. The Hokage had it with the reports of arson, so he had a new house built near the Forest of Death, so Naruto would have a way to escape any mobs. It had relatively new furniture and working heaters. Which meant Naruto no longer had to worry whether or not the hot water would work. It also meant that as a homeowner, he could lace the place with enough seals to keep out. The days of people breaking in and getting away with it were over. Anyone sporting a brand new coat of fluorescent paint when Naruto hadn't used any recently were now picked up by Anbu within an hour. Naruto put his hands into a cross pattern and created 9 clones. The red-eyed one always appeared when he created more than 8. Sure enough, the red-eyed one appeared. He dispelled the other 8. So you are the Kyuubi. I always wondered why there was a red-eyed clone in the midst of the blues, said Cries. Gee. Why should I care about the opinion of some bug? Said Kyuubi. Because your container listens to this bug. Anyway, we have questions that need answers. Questions the Hokage won't like being asked, said Chrysalis. The Kyuubi-possessed clone gave her a fanged grin. Well then let's talk shop, shall we? Chrysalis gave a fanged grin of her own. There was a very good reason why Chrysalis was able to deal with the fox. She could care less about the humans aside from Naruto. So, you are the son of the fourth and his wife, the Princess of Whirlpool. That explains why the Hokage refuses to inform you of your parents. It also explains the odd resemblance I noted with that picture in his office. Kyuubi was sitting at the table eating an apple. It was clear Chrysalis could care less about how the humans felt about his presence, so long as he didn't hurt Naruto. I am curious, little bug. Why is it that you do not fear me or consider me a lesser being? Have you ever heard of Equestria? That dimension ruled by ponies. What of it? In Equestria, there are several breeds of creatures that live in peace. Griffins, zebras, and ponies. Most others are feared, such as my kind. In recent years the land has grown lax, and most would call it peaceful. I call it weak. The only real thing we have to fear is the royal guard and their precious Princess Celestia. And she hasn't grown much stronger since sealing her younger sister in the moon that she was in charge of 1,000 years ago. Chrysalis grimaced. Dealing with Celestia is like having a tooth pulled. It's unpleasant but necessary. Unfortunately for me, she has a dim view of changelings because we sometimes actively prey on ponies. However, I have recently learned that they no longer search for changelings in Canterlot, which is the capital of the ponies. Luckily for them, my hive is satisfied with feeding off the humans here, otherwise I would start planning an invasion, said Chrysalis. Pathetic. It sounds like this Canterlot is similar to Konoha. They are so assured of their superiority over the more violent races that they have become lax in their security, said Kyuubi. We definitely need to swap ideas, said Cries smirking. The Kyuubi clone grinned evilly. Anyway, Naruto interrupted, what are we going to do now? The last thing we need is the Anbu on our ass because we finally learned who the red-eyed clone is. Living with Chrysalis had done wonders to Naruto's personality. Now he could care less about people in authority aside from the old Hokage, and that was because he actually respected him. You know we have to retake that stupid exam, don't you? Said Chrysalis. So? Gigi said this time he would be there to make sure the exam is fair to everyone. Said Naruto. Yes, but if Mizuki hadn't tricked you, we would have had to get Anko to take you on as an apprentice until you reached Chunin. Said Cries. Can we keep that as a fallback option if we get a crappy team? Asked Naruto. Like say if the teachers were dumb enough to pair you with the Uchiha and the Haruno girl because of your grades. Said Cries. Yes. Said Naruto. Absolutely. In fact, I'll have one of the minions in the building check just in case, said Cries. She closed her eyes momentarily and the changeling in the Hokage building went to work. An hour later it reported back. It would appear we should give them a week, she said. Why? Because your teacher is Hada Kakashi and the Hokage was smart enough to put us both on the same team, said Cries with a smirk. Iruka was on leave, but the Hokage watched over the exams personally this time around to make it fair. An hour later Naruto had Iruka's old headband on his head again, this time marking it official. Sarutobi had ensured Naruto wouldn't have to use the shadow clone too early, so he had the requirement be 2 out of the Academy 3. Naturally he chose Henge and replacement. Cries merely smirked and went back to reading, having already passed again. She couldn't wait to see the look on the civilian council's faces when they learned that not only had a foreign species infiltrated the village and had thoroughly entrenched itself in all the right places to cause the village no end of trouble if removed, Sarutobi had suggested that in order to give Danzo a heart attack once he figured it out, but that they were completely loyal only to Naruto. Uzumaki, the same child they had tried to kill for years. If nothing else it would be entertaining for her and Naruto. Cries was about to turn the page when one of her minions reported something interesting. They had located the remnants of the Uzumaki clan. No way could a clan that big be wiped out down to the last man, especially if they were ninja. Some of them had to survive, if only because they weren't around that week, on missions. One of the Uzumaki was in Kusa. Another in a village that had cropped up in the last 10 years. A third was in Rain, though report said that the man in question operated behind a dead body, with a rarity most villages would kill to have. The last one was currently drowning her past in some bar who knows where. With those facts in mind, Cries went to see Sarutobi. I've found remnants of the Uzumaki clan, she said flatly. What? There are currently 4 that we are aware of. One is in Kusa, another in the Sound, one in Rain, and the last is currently wandering from bar to bar in the company of a dark-haired Kunoichi with a pig wearing pearls. She is the oldest of the 4. Sarutobi pinched his nose before an idea struck him. The last one was obviously Tsunade. How were you able to confirm they are Uzumaki? I am very familiar with Kushina Uzumaki. I ran into her when I managed to locate the fox once I knew what that seal on his stomach did. Following her odd chakra signature gave my minions a base sample, and it was simply comparing it to others in each of the villages that told us. It doesn't hurt that she happened to mention that almost all Uzumaki have red hair. 3 of the 4 have red hair, said Chrysalis dryly. If you can get me names, I can arrange a mock mission for Team 7 to go on in order for Naruto to accidentally run into the Uzumaki in Kusa. Tsunade has been running for years and the other 2 aren't allied with us. In an unrelated note, has Danzo figured out your prank yet? Sarutobi smirked. This wasn't his Hokage smirk however. This was Sarutobi Hiruzen, student of the first 2 Hokage and unrepentant prankster smirk. Not yet, but believe me I have Anbu following him everywhere with cameras on hand when he finally gets that news, he said. Did you know he still has that root program up and running? It's a good thing my minions don't have any emotions and operate on a hive mind mentality, because I had 3 infiltrate that bunker, and his training is absolutely brutal for children. Fortunately, I have been able to convert one of them to the hive, because otherwise that poor child would be unable to function in normal society. What? Danzo still operates root, and he is brutally training at least 500 children from several different clans. According to the memories of my minions in there are at least 10 Hyuga, 5 with implanted Sharingan, and over 5 of each major clan in the village. Is there any way to kidnap them and replace them with your minions so we can trap him? Asked Sarutobi. I've been doing that for the past 3 months. So far I have them in a separate bunker and kept safe by some of my minions who look like their teachers. Would you like to meet them so we can proceed with getting Danzo out of power immediately? Absolutely. Naruto was bored, and when he was bored he generally became impossible to be around unless you were Cries. Which was why the Uchiha and Haruno girl were treated to the odd side of Naruto directing 10 clones like a commander about to go to battle with the odd red-eyed one off to the side reading something and ignoring everyone. Naruto didn't even bother to direct him. An hour later, Naruto and the last clone, who were the only ones to remain in the room with him, sit up as if they heard something. Cries walked in with more books. You're late. Screeched Haruno. Of course I am. I was helping out the Hokage, and besides Hada Kakashi is never on time when he can help it. Please, like the Hokage needs a Genin's help, sneered Sasuke. At that moment, the Hokage showed up with more paper. Be sure to deliver the reports when Haddock is finished with you, Cries-chan, said Sarutobi with a wink. As you ask, old man, smirked Chrysalis. Seeing the looks on Sasuke and Sakura's faces was priceless. And Naruto, next time you pop the clones, try to do it in a way that doesn't reveal they're clones. Like start a fight with someone at the bars, said Sarutobi. Thanks for the tip, old man, said Naruto, grinning. An hour and a half later Kakashi walks into the room only to find a bored Naruto and clone, who he can tell by the chakra, is possessed by the fox itself and behaving, of all things, an angry Uchiha brat who clearly hates his team already, a lovesick pinkette who clearly had a thing for the emo Uchiha. And the weird girl who reeked of blood and chakra that played the part of the bully towards Naruto but was actually his closest friend, filing what appeared to be reports for the Hokage himself. Kakashi recognized them to be spy infiltration reports, having done countless himself. And so he is entirely unsurprised when Naruto, who had to pick up something from this Cries girl, and he had heard about shadow clones popping in nearly 10 bars on the way to the school, begins to fill in the blanks to his angry teammates. Cries simply continues her reports, since she is legally a real genin who needs a new team. Once they were done, Sasuke and Sakura being very surprised to hear that Cries is the current leading infiltration specialist in the village, the three departed in 3 different ways. Sasuke and Sakura to their respective homes, Naruto and Cries to deliver the reports to the Hokage. Cries was deeply unimpressed. She had heard Kakashi was a porn addict who was constantly late to everything, barring the new releases of Icha anyway, and that he had the Sharingan from his dead teammate. People were very chatty towards the ladies and keen when given enough liquor. But she had never known how damaged the man was. She could see the results plain as day, because he was a subpar teacher compared to Iruka or Anko. The man had passed them on the barest hint of teamwork, i.e. feeding her Uno after she got caught in a very poor cast odd. She and Naruto had managed to avoid his tricks by working as a team, like a summoner and summoner should. However, a full week of training had Chrysalis making one inescapable conclusion. Kakashi had absolutely no idea how to train a newly minted genin. All he did was get on her nerves by telling them to work as a team, and yet he never told the children how. The academy didn't exactly teach teamwork like they should, even though it was one of the biggest requirements to becoming a genin in the first place. In fact, Chrysalis thought that the place was entirely backwards, considering the fact Haruno, whose only contribution to the team was being a shinobi encyclopedia, had managed to make it this far. When she mentioned to some of the older shinobi, she wasn't surprised in the least to hear agreement, especially when they heard how close a damn fangirl came to being the top kunoichi of the year. Sakura was beaten out by Cries, to her rage. After seeing how poorly Kakashi taught his new team, Cries gave him 2 weeks before confronting the Hokage about it and coming up with a plan to break the root brainwashing that Danzo had ordered. The week after that, Anko came to their shared house and informed them that Team 7 had been split into 2 new teams, with Sasuke and Sakura with Kakashi, Cries and Naruto on another. Kakashi hadn't been happy about that at all, considering he had wanted to train a new Team 7 after his old team was killed off one by one, the last being by his own hand. However, he had been outvoted by both the Hokage and unsurprisingly the council, who didn't like the fact that Naruto was on the same team as the last Uchiha. They could care less if Anko trained him and Cries along with another teamless genin. That child was the first of those she had rescued from Danzo's little program, primarily because his trick with ink had caught her interest. Tricking him into thinking the changeling Danzo had been the biggest test for her minions. The end result spoke for themselves. Danzo had yet to cop on to the fact that a good 50 of his personal troops now served Chrysalis and by extension Naruto. Introducing the hive mentality had been easy. Getting them to distrust Danzo had taken months, which was why she had waited before informing the Hokage. Sarutobi hadn't commented on that odd quirk when he first met the freed children, but considering Cries would never do anything that would hurt her summoner in the long run, he didn't bother to comment on it. Besides, what was 50 children acting on hive mentality to 500 still being held like captives in that horrific training program? At the very least Naruto would get some friends. Anko had been brought in partly because she was one of the best interrogators in the village and knew how to twist people around to her way of thinking, and because she was one of the few Cries trusted to actually be around Naruto when she wasn't. That, and because few would actually look at her team since it had Naruto on it unless they brought attention to it. In the Hokage's mind, they made the perfect shinobi team. This was proven when he gave them the go-ahead to go straight to C and B ranks and got only glowing reviews in return. Kakashi could barely get his team to complete a simple retrieval mission without them bickering like children. Even if he had left one of the hive children, his nickname for the first 50 Cries rescued. For some odd reason it stuck. To replace Naruto. That girl tended to rip into both of the other two, often resulting in a short but painful lesson in why they needed better training. Naruto had landed in the hospital 5 times since the change because she believed the new girl to be a challenger for the Uchiha's heart and had attempted to beat the girl with her strength the same way she used to do to Naruto. Unfortunately for Sakura, Nadeshiko, Cries had helped the Hokage rename all the children and had named most of the girls after flowers among other things, didn't like to be hit for no other reason than pointing something out or asking an odd question. Hence why she tended to reciprocate when Haruno tried to brain her. The fact that Nadeshiko continued to return to the bunker, Cries was slowly acclimating them to the outside world, meant that Naruto could hear exactly what Kakashi did to train his old team. And with every report, he could only thank Cries for actually ensuring his shinobi education didn't start off on the wrong foot. It would have taken years of extensive training to catch up if Kakashi had his way. Naruto was in the mission office with his team when Kakashi came in with his old one. They had just finished the most hated mission on the records, catching Tora. Yet another reason he loved being on Anko's team instead. After hearing how much Naruto bitched when he had to catch that damn cat, she agreed never to make them do it unless they were so low on cash that they had no other options. Well, that and she really didn't like that cat. Team Anko, take your pick of C ranks. Team Kakashi, we still have a few drinks if you're called Iruka. All it had taken for him not to freak out about the fact Naruto had jumped to C ranks in less than a month of being a genin was the fact Cries revealed she was a summoner and Naruto tricking Iruka into a date with Anko after beating him in a fight. Anko and Iruka were seen a few times after that, having found a common love of Naruto and having to watch him. It wouldn't surprise Cries if those two ended up together. Why the hell does the dead last and bug breath get to do C ranks while we're on Ds? Demanded Sakura. The Hokage had enough of dealing with the girl's mother and it was clear Sakura was just like her. Hence the reason why he snapped at her. Because Team Anko is qualified to go on C rank since they take their training seriously. At least I know I can trust my best interrogator to keep her team alive, even if she has trouble actually teaching like a normal person. Then he looked at Kakashi with annoyance. And yet your teacher has yet to even show you what tree walking is. No, there is absolutely no chance I am allowing a bunch of greenhorns, with the exception of Kakashi and Nadeshiko, taking a C rank when they wouldn't be able to handle an attack, let alone bandits with ninja training, said the Hokage flatly. Kakashi looked sheepish. I wanted their teamwork to be better before I taught them anything, he said. It was Nadeshiko who spoke this time. She tended to get her training done with Team Anko before going to Kakashi's team. It wasn't like Anko cared. Kakashi-sensei, your teaching qualifications are weak at best and non-existent at worst. Even if we did take a C rank, there is no chance in hell I would go out on it with a team like this, said the former mindless drone flatly. Naruto and Cries flashed her a thumbs up in agreement. Anko grabbed the first C rank that she could and they went to get ready for the mission. Nadeshiko watched them leave before she turned to the Hokage and asked in a near whine if she could join them instead of D ranks. To the surprise of Kakashi, the next afternoon Iruka delivered a note from the Hokage saying Nadeshiko was being cleared to go with Team Anko until the C rank was over. Apparently they needed the backup. Though that did lead to an interesting discussion with the Hokage about who Nadeshiko actually was if she was selected to be their backup when she was supposed to be a simple genin. So just to be clear, Inari is a brat who still cries about his dead dad and yet neglects to realize that his mother and grandfather are still alive and care about him. Right, which way is his room? Said Naruto, irritated, a twitch appearing in his right eyebrow. Cries was also twitching, having practically raised the boy since her second summoning and realizing how bad his home life was. The two went up to Inari's room, ignored the crying and slapped some sense into the boy. Or in the case of Cries, reverted to her real form and scared the living daylights out of him in order to keep his attention before returning downstairs. Alright brats. Time for some training. 2 hours of water walking before we learn your elements. Barked Anko. Naruto had been waiting for this for weeks since Cries had changed his team. Kakashi likely wouldn't have bothered and it was one of the things that the proctors looked for. He knew the exam was coming up in Konoha in a month. Cries kept him informed since the minions heard about it offhand. Once they had done their chakra exercise for the day, Anko brandished 4 papers. Each genin took one and channeled chakra into it. Daisuke, the boy who used ink and happened to be a child from the Aburam clan, his hive was currently under construction, since Shibi was less than happy about the fact that someone had brainwashed a child from his clan, but he wasn't going to neglect the boy's heritage, was the first to complete the exercise. His element was water and earth. Nadeshiko was next, and unsurprisingly she was fired. Naruto went after her, and his element turned out to be wind and water. Anko whistled at that, because wind as an element was actually pretty rare, even in wind country. Cries was last. And she was the most shocking. Chrysalis had all 5 elements. Anko couldn't believe it. That's impossible. How can you have all 5? Anko, you know what I am. Is it really that surprising that I can use all 5? Anko paused, thought back to what she was saying, and realized that no, it wasn't that odd. Chrysalis was a changeling. If she could change her face and voice so perfectly she could infiltrate practically anywhere and mimic behavior almost exactly with a little study, then chances were she would need the ability to use all the elements as well. Well, at least I can help three of you. Sorry, Naruto, but I don't know much water, let alone wind. It's rare to even have a wind type. However, you can ask Asuma for advice because he does have it, said Anko. Woohoo. I get to hang out with Chaoji, said Naruto. Prize grinned with amusement. She rather liked the large boy, who had trouble believing at first that one of the prettiest girls in the class didn't mind being around him. Anko gave him a thumbs up. Not a problem, and Kryze actually liked the boy, even if Shikamaru was very close to figuring out what Kryze actually was without being told. For the next few hours she taught the kiddies Elemental and Naruto a few shadow clone tricks he could use since he had only gotten a brief look at the scroll. Even Kryze was interested in those. It was the day before Zabuza was expected to return and Naruto was out cold sleeping outside. This wasn't because he had been out training until he was exhausted. This was deliberate. The clearing had been picked by Kryze, who was interested in capturing the little helpers Zabuza had, with him or without him. Which meant Naruto had to stake out the clearing with the best medicinal plants a few days before Zabuza was supposed to return, because as Kryze reasoned, there was a high chance the accomplice would need to restock their medicinal plants. Being on the run meant that keeping a large stock of medicinal plants was impractical and nearly impossible. Naruto was only faking being asleep when the accomplice showed up. He had a ton of clones around the area, as trees. This clearing had been demolished by Nadeshiko, who had been practicing the Grand Fireball for the past few days. Several were hidden behind a simple screen, so they couldn't be seen right off. And let's not forget the others there with him as well. There were at least 10 changelings in the event that the accomplice tried to pull a fast one and managed to take out the 15 clones hiding. Today the Kyuubi had decided to sleep rather than possess a clone. Naruto still couldn't believe his seal didn't cover the clone possession, but considering it kept him on the fox's good side to let him out and about every once in a while he wasn't complaining. Finding out that the accomplice wasn't as cold as he portrayed made his day. It meant that Kryze could possibly convert him. Which meant they would have someone to keep an eye on Naruto when she had to recharge and restore order back home. The only reason her minions had yet to challenge her position as queen was because she was definitely getting stronger. Chrysalis's idea of using lust in place of love was working like a charm. Most of her minions were working inside brothels, which had the added bonus of keeping tabs on Jiraiya ironically enough, and bars. This kept tabs on Tsunade, which meant they heard more rumors and information than Jiraiya did. Plus there was the fact that whatever they saw, she could see as well. Naruto confirmed that this boy-girl was Zabuza's accomplice, and one of the changelings followed the accomplice back. Zabuza would be in for a nasty surprise when Chrysalis showed up. Zabuza was the one to notice that they weren't alone. He grabbed the closest pointy thing around, which was a kunai. "Who's there?" he demanded. Haku went on instant alert. "Oh good, you aren't as stupid as you look. This will make things easier," she said, walking out of the shadows. It was Kryze in human form. "You're one of those leaf brats." "Oh, I may be allied to the leaf at the moment, but I am most certainly not as young as you believe," she replied sneering. She was only nice around Naruto and mostly the Hokage. Anyone else would have to take their chances. She dropped the human form and returned to her real form. Zabuza wasn't the only one gaping. "What the hell are you?" "I am a changeling. The queen of the changelings to be precise. It just so happens that one of the children you fought happens to be my summoner. Now demon of the mist, I am giving you and your apprentice a choice. Either join us or be killed. And just so you know how serious I am, I suggest looking out the window," she said smirking. Haku looked out and blanched. The area was filled with smaller but equally bug-like horse creatures that looked like the one in the house. There was little doubt if they tried anything they would attack. "Now that I have your full attention, perhaps this information would interest you. Gatu has absolutely no intention of paying you. In fact, he is currently recruiting as many low-level bandits he can get his hands on to kill you, even if you did manage to kill the Leaf Ninjas sent. And even if you did kill them all, what would you do once the Leaf sent their hunters after you? After all, the blonde child happens to be the hidden son of their fourth Hokage, though that information was classified to keep Iwa away. That orange-wearing nightmare is the son of the fourth. And he happens to be the son of the Whirlpool's last princess, the red habanero Kushina Uzumaki. In fact, he shares the same burden his mother once took on after Mito Uzumaki's death. If Zabuza was pale before, he was white as a ghost now. He's like his mother shit, there is no way in the 9 hells I am going to go after the leaf now," said Zabuza flatly. "Master Zabuza, what burden did this Kushina Uzumaki have?" Kushina Uzumaki was like Yagura, only she had 3 times the tails he did. "She was the second container for the Kyuubi," said Zabuza. "And my summoner. So what do you call Zabuza?" Do you want to fight Naruto and his demon, not to mention the most sadistic bitch Konoha has ever produced, or do you want to make a deal with her and temporarily join the Leaf until you can get revenge on the one who took control of your friend Yugura? Zabuza looked at her sharply. How did you know about me and Yugura? My race can change into anyone, and they happen to be seated around the elemental countries. Ninjas don't even have the ability to remove our illusions, and we can take the place of anyone with perfect accuracy, so long as we observe them long enough. In fact, the Hokage has me keeping tabs on his former students as we speak, said Chrysalis pleasantly. How sure are you that Gato is going to betray us? Why don't you send your apprentice to find out? Chrysalis countered. And with that, she vanished into darkness. If Zabuza wanted to make a deal, he could come to them. 3 hours later, Haku returned, pale, and informed Zabuza that the horse bug thing had not been lying in the least. Gato had just been giving a speech about what they were to do when he showed up, and it was clear he had no intention of paying them what he owed. So he had Haku drop a scroll off next to Anko so she could find them and they could make a deal. At least the Leaf Ninja were being upfront about their intentions. Anko wasn't the least bit surprised when Zabuza's apprentice showed up. After all, Kryze had informed her that she had approached them to offer them a way out. Finding out they would be dealing with a large group of hired thugs tomorrow had Anko giving them the day off early, no exceptions. Since they were warned, they all prepared to kill. Anko left during the night to speak to Zabuza and came back looking smug. Zabuza, now that he was aware Gato wasn't going to pay him, was going to join them in the slaughter. As a just-in-case precaution, since Chrysalis didn't think much of Gato's character in general and had a feeling he would pull something last minute, she left 10 of her changelings around the house. One of which was hanged as Naruto, since he was recently hatched, and it was easy enough to mimic the boy since the changelings had been around Naruto enough. This was just a test run for the minion, who Naruto insisted on calling Bob since he was the lone human who could tell them apart for some reason. Zabuza was waiting for them with his apprentice, who Chrysalis learned was named Haku. Nadeshiko and Daisuke had been informed of the situation, as had Naruto. Hence why they didn't attack on sight. Kryze, of course, wasn't there at the moment. In order to maintain the element of surprise should Gato appear, she went home several hours earlier, even though she had just recharged the day before. If Naruto had to, he could do a summon within a few seconds and bring her out. Because he had been doing this off and on for many years, enough that her summon set knew him very well, he had been around to see some hatching so he could understand them better and that he could summon her every time. It didn't hurt that they were primarily spies and infiltrators and required much less chakra to summon than say the Toad Boss. When Naruto once asked why she was easier to summon than Manda, when Anko made an offhand comment about the fact he kept summoning the boss so often, Chrysalis believed it had something to do with the mass in the chakra that the summon in question had. She could steal energy from emotions or from any minion already out, but she had roughly a high worth on her own. That was part of the reason she worked at the Keen. It gave her the power boost to stay out without having to worry Naruto. Zabuza's attention was primarily on Naruto. "Brat, is your mother really Kushina Uzumaki?" "That's what the old man Hokage told me. She died when I was born," said Naruto flatly. "That settles it." "No way in hell am I going to fight the son of that lunatic," said Zabuza. Lunatic," said Naruto. "You've never seen her fight. She makes the very idea of fighting her seem like a bad idea, because half the time her opponents were beaten in such humiliating ways that they were either broken, quit the game entirely, or never spoke of the incident again. That woman was a menace. I can't count how many people breathed a sigh of relief when she stopped taking missions for a few months, apparently when she learned she was pregnant. I don't envy whoever married her, that's for damn sure," said Zabuza. That was actually more than he had on his mother. Perhaps it was time to bug the older shinobi for stories about her. Unrepentant prankster too, if I remember right. You may look like your dad's kid, but personality-wise, you are far too much like your mother for most people to retain their sanity, said Anko. When Naruto grinned, Zabuza shivered. Definitely the son of Kushina. 2 hours later Gato showed up and wasn't very happy to see an uninjured group of ninja waiting for him to show up. Even less so when Daisuke used his clan's bloodline to bring out massive amounts of bugs to complement his ink creations. He wasn't as good as that one kid who drew as a hobby, but he was good enough to suit his former root masters. Frankly, now that he had a mind of his own, he liked Naruto and Kryze better. So did Nadeshiko, even if it meant putting up with the ninja wannabe Sasuke and Sakura. At least they fussed if one of the children got hurt. And they fed them better than the bland food route provided. Even if part of the deal meant having to train Naruto properly in exchange for their freedom, it was a small price to pay. He gave them back their emotions and treated them like his friends. Naruto stayed behind to protect Azuna, while Daisuke and Nadeshiko went after the mercenaries who fell in droves. He did back them up with several hundred clones, keeping a close eye on his reserves in case he needed to summon Chrysalis and her changeling army. Because of how small they were and the fact that they shared their memories, 50 of them would be more than enough as backup. Besides, with the sheer weirdness of how they looked, none of the bandits would take them seriously until it was too late. Nadeshiko put her new fire to work, and if Naruto didn't know any better, he would swear she was related to that dumb Sasuke. Daisuke was definitely Shino's more vocal cousin, because the amount of bugs that were on the bridge was frankly ridiculous. If Anko were any Kunoichi but the best interrogator in the Leaf Village and a known snake mistress, then she would have been creeped out greatly by the amount. As it was, she was clearing the way for Zabuza to take out the midget who started this mess, since part of his agreement to join the Leaf was to be allowed the privilege of gutting the bastard. Considering she understood all too well the thought of someone trying to stiff her out of well-earned cash, she agreed to the terms. By the end of the day, the villagers had finally been roused up to fight Gatu, only to find that they had to deal with the dregs left behind by Daisuke and Nadeshiko. After the party, they got ready to head home since Gatu was gone. But not before Naruto brought Chrysalis out. Apparently she had left a changeling behind in Gator's place and had the account numbers and everything. The people of Wave could care less if they had a new person to deal with in terms of shipping, only that this one could care less about ruining Wave and was more interested in following orders. The first act the changeling did was donate several million ryo to Wave in order to bring it out of economic depression. A few million were placed in Naruto's account as well, which Cries planned to use to pay for some upgrades to the house. Like a small plot of land for her to leave some changeling hatchlings to grow and add to her army. That way they wouldn't need to be summoned. Well, that and she needed to add a wall, since the one they had was falling apart. She had just the team for that job too. Team 7, you have been requested for a construction job near Area 44. Word of advice, I would avoid the forest if I were you. You'll mostly be rebuilding a wall that has been destroyed by the owner to make more room for a new wing, said the Hokage. He couldn't wait to see the look on their face when they realized who the client was. He was going to be watching from his crystal ball, and Cries had promised to record it for him. Ami knows he would have fun seeing the look on Kakashi's face when his porn vanishes. The Hokage knew it would happen because he had helped to make that seal in case Jiraiya ever tried to see his godson finally. Cries had set up a seal so that it took the porn into another room until they left when she handed it back. Just because she danced for a little extra cash energy didn't mean she liked reading the stuff. Icha, however, got burned. The Hokage learned that the hard way too, though Cries did make up for it by introducing him to science fiction porn, which he thought was better. Plus she got him a free private booth at the Keen. Cries was in her adult form when Kakashi knocked on the outside of the wall. Or what was left of it anyway. She let some of the kids she liberated from Root use it for target practice, as long as they got the materials needed to rebuild it. Naturally those kids had a lot of fun, especially with Naruto's vocal encouragement. Humming. Hello, ma'am. You asked for us. He said, eyes smiling. He recognized her as one of his favorite dancers. Yes. The material is on the other side, and I've hired a second team to work on the new wing of the house. The borders are clearly marked, so it should be easy for them. May I ask your name? I only know you by your stage name, said Kakashi. Well, this isn't technically my house. The owner is actually part of the second team working on the new wing, she said, grinning. Curious, Kakashi looked around her to see Zabuza Mamachi and his apprentice arguing over the colors of their rooms. Behind them was a bored Naruto who was directing his clones in the building. This is Naruto's house, said Sakura. After the 5th time the apartment was nearly burned down, it was simply easier to give him a home. The wall was damaged by fools, which was why we had to wait in order to have it rebuilt. Enough already. If you can't decide now, why not throw a kunai at the ones you do like? Yelled Naruto. Haku and Zabuza paused in their arguing before they looked at each other. That is likely the smartest thing you've said all day, said Haku. Zabuza ended up with a light emerald green and Haku got a nice ice blue. With that, the construction began in earnest. All the heaviest pieces were carried by Zabuza and Kakashi, while the rest was handled by the genin. Sakura and Sasuke weren't too pleased to find out that they were helping build new additions to Naruto's house. Unfortunately for them, Nadeshiko happened to like Naruto like a brother, so she kept them from trying to sabotage the new wall. It was a week before the exams, and Naruto was bored. Cries was gone, doing whatever changeling queens do in their home, and all he had to entertain him was Bob. Ironically, that became his name, which made him the only changeling who could be identified on site. Today was their scheduled day off, which meant no missions, no training, and most importantly no housework. They were still trying to build the new wing of the house, and with the half-assed way they built the wall, Sakura and Sasuke were asked not to come back. Instead, Cries enlisted the Root kids she rescued, and the wall was done properly this time. They had to tear down the section Sasuke and Sakura did because while they appeared to be done they weren't. So yes, Naruto was quite bored. He was also banned from pranks for the next week by the Hokage. So when Bob asked him why he didn't just reverse summon himself to Queen Chrysalis and spend time hanging out with the changelings, Naruto was all for the idea. Only problem was that he had no idea how to reverse the summon. Bob walked him through it and with a poof Naruto was gone. The first thing Naruto noticed was when he realized he was on all fours. The next was that he had something on his back and when he turned to look he found a pair of orange wings and a tail. What the hell? Naruto? How in Equestria did you? Who are you? Demanded Chrysalis. She heard Naruto's voice, but before her was an orange stallion with the same swirl Naruto had on all his clothes around his neck, a leaf headband around his head, and a blonde mane that spiked just like Naruto's. When the stallion turned to her, his eyes were the same sapphire blue as his too. Cries. I don't know what happened. I was only trying a reverse summoning like Bob suggested, said Naruto. Cries blinked twice, then turned around and said I need a break. Chrissy. Whined Naruto. Oh, would you relax? It's not the end of the world. Why don't you learn how to fly on those new wings of yours? Maybe you can figure out your special talent and get a cutie mark like the ponies do. Just be glad you landed here because otherwise the changelings might have attacked you, said Chrysalis calmly. She had learned a long time ago that Naruto bent reality to suit his needs. Hence why she wasn't freaking out at the moment. Honestly, she was surprised this hadn't happened before now. After a 3-hour-long nap, Chrysalis woke up to find Naruto zooming around her minions, who apparently recognized him just as fast as she had. Naruto had gotten over his freak out over being a pony, and really, this did not surprise her that he became a pony after he reverse summoned himself there. He was just too nice to ever be a changeling and was actually enjoying his day off. Cries wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to cloud walk since his pony form was a Pegasus. Since they had the day off, Chrysalis decided to introduce him to Equestria. It wasn't like he would suddenly start to worship Celestia since he disagreed with the way she handled her sister's dark half. As someone with a giant malevolent fox in his stomach, Naruto knew a thing or two about darker personalities. Though it did take a relatively minor transport spell to bring them to the best place to introduce him to ponies of all shapes and forms, namely a small town called Ponyville, which had some of the most open and friendly ponies around. Well, that and it was a decent enough distance from Canterlot that they could ride to the capital in less than a day on the train. The funny thing was that the minute they stepped into Ponyville, they ran into this pink earth pony with balloons on her flank that reminded her of a female Naruto with an obsession for parties and pranks. So this is Ponyville. Seems like a nice place, said Naruto. Once he got over the shock of the pink pony, he rather liked it. Everyone was much friendlier than they were back home. Though he didn't even flinch when he saw the weapons shopper, the one that sold medicinal plants. It felt just like home. There were a few odd ponies who wore weapons and armor, but the majority appeared to be civilians. One of the ponies was selling apples wearing a sword on its back and armor. It was well maintained, but it also looked like it hadn't seen any action in a while. Naruto looked at Chrysalis, who handed him a bag of bits. A quick rundown of the monetary system and Naruto went out to explore Ponyville, while Chrysalis went to the biggest bookstore in town. She had a thing for books, and she had a very limited selection in the hive, when most of the books she had in there had been read multiple times, and not just by her. She had all the memories of previous queens, which meant she didn't necessarily need to read a book to know what was in it. It was rather boring to reread the same 50 books over and over again. Naruto walked up to the pony with the sword first. Hi. How many bits for an apple fritter? He asked. Howdy there. It's 10 bits, said the pony. Naruto handed over 10 bits to the mare and enjoyed the fresh apple fritter he got in return. So what's your name? I ain't never seen you around this part before, she asked. Name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. And I'm just visiting Ponyville with a friend of mine since we happen to be in the area, said Naruto cheerfully. Well, howdy Naruto. My name's Applejack and I run the local militia. Of course you would probably be more interested in the Sky Patrol run by Rainbow Dash. Most Pegasus ponies tend to go into her group if they don't try for the Royal Guard, said Applejack. What exactly does the local militia do anyway? As Applejack talked about it, the more Naruto's interest grew. Because it was mostly made up of earth ponies and the odd unicorn, they focused on something Applejack called apple bucking, which doubled as free labor for her farm, since it meant the militia helped to harvest the apples faster. Since Naruto only needed to meet Chrysalis at the town hall when the sun gave way to the moon, i.e. sunset, he decided to check out the militia. Howdy, said Naruto. He was at Sweet Apple Acres where the local militia was busy harvesting the apples from the trees and in the process exercising their legs. Howdy there, said Big Macintosh. So is it true that you can keep any apples you buck so long as you get at least 4 baskets worth? Buck 4, get one for yourself, said Big Mac. Where do I sign up? Big Macintosh pointed at the sheet and Naruto quickly signed up. It took him 10 minutes to get the hang of apple bucking, but he was having a blast doing it. When the clock rolled around to 3, Big Macintosh blew the whistle, signaling that the day was over. Because most of the ponies were only doing this part-time, the workday was rather short. Each of the ponies walked up to the desk where an old mare was doing the accounting. Naruto walked up with 7 baskets and got a full barrel to take back with him. Apparently that was the minimum for 7. He had it loaded onto his back and walked back to town when he was knocked down by a rainbow blur. Whoa there. Sorry about that. Called a cyan-colored pony with rainbow mane and tail. I'm alright. And you didn't break the barrel so we're good, said Naruto. Back from Applejack's little training program? She asked. Said Naruto. Big Macintosh's catchphrase was hard not to pick up. Man, you must be good at apple bucking if you earned a whole barrel. Most ponies can only get a basket, said the pony. It was fun, said Naruto. My name is Rainbow Dash, leader of the Sky Patrol. We keep an eye out for things trying to cause trouble from the Everfree Forest, said the mare. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. I'm visiting Ponyville with a friend, said Naruto. Cool. Hey, you like to race? Naruto grinned. He went to find Chrysalis, who sent the barrel back to the hive so he could take it home with him and then went out to race Rainbow Dash. Ready? Set. Go. Yelled Applejack. Rainbow Dash was a blur as she flew at high speeds. But she was surprised when an orange and blonde blur passed her. The newly minted Pegasus from Konoha flew in erratic ways that seemingly had no pattern. But when Rainbow Dash followed it, she found that the other Pegasus seemed to have a knack for avoiding the odd air current that could knock you off course. Something even she had trouble doing. Applejack wasn't the only one gaping when Naruto passed Rainbow and crossed the finish line first. No way. How the heck did you beat me? Said Rainbow. I'm used to running. Flying isn't that different. Laughed Naruto upside down. Rainbow laughed. She liked this colt, he was fun. So Naruto, how long are you here for? At least until sunset. Chrissy said she'd help me get back home since she's really good at transport spells and today was my day off. Too bad the old man said that I'm not allowed to prank anyone for the next week, said Naruto. He was sitting on a cloud now. You like pranks? Said Rainbow, eyes gleaming. You better believe it. I'm the most unpredictable pony in my village. The grin on Rainbow's face would have scared any normal person. Instead it inspired Naruto to do new mischief. Rainbow and Naruto exchanged ideas for a few hours before he went exploring again. He ran into a white unicorn with diamonds on her flanks and a deep purple curled mane. She took one look at him and his messy hair, gasped, and before he could say a word in edgewise, he was dragged to the nearby boutique. He spent a full hour there getting new clothes, which he paid for, and wondered if they would fit his human form when he went home, and learned her name was Rarity. He was almost to the town hall when he ran into a light yellow Pegasus who was trying and failing to coax a fox into eating. Apparently it was sick. Hi, what seems to be the problem? Asked Naruto. Beep. Said the Pegasus pony. Sorry. What's wrong with the little fox? The Pegasus pony was extremely shy, roughly at the same level as Hinata was. Naruto carefully backed up and asked again. He strained his ears to hear her answer. Once he understood what the problem was, he knelt down to the den. Hey there little guy. Why don't you come out? She only wants to make you feel better, said Naruto gently. He had a feeling the fox would respond to him better than it would the mare. The tiny albino head popped out. It was so little that it was obviously still a baby. Oh you poor thing. Your mommy must not have wanted you because of your odd coloring, said the mare gently. The tiny fox barked. Naruto could tell that its eyes had only recently opened, so it was still rather young. He followed the mare back to her house, which was filled with animals. A rabbit came out of nowhere and tried to kick him out because it felt the fox inside of him. Now Angel, said the mare. Angel? Mouthed Naruto. That rabbit wasn't an angel, it was an animal in the same class as that damn Tora if he didn't know any better. Once the tiny fox had something to eat, it had eaten a lot and it was so small that its mother clearly hadn't been tending to it at all. The mare turned to an interested Naruto. He was looking at all the animals with interest since the closest thing he had come to was either Tora or Akamaru. Neither of which liked him that much. I'm so sorry. My name is Fluttershy. Uzumaki Naruto, said Naruto, giving her a slight bow. Fluttershy blushed. As Naruto talked to Fluttershy, he noted that the sun was going down. He said goodbye and walked back to the town hall where Chrysalis was waiting. She was still in the form of a unicorn pony, so it was easy to see her. I see you had fun, said Chrysalis. You bet. Do you hear something? It appears the pink pony we ran into on the way in has thrown a party for us. According to another, this Pinky tends to do this often whenever she can find a good excuse for it. Shall we go in? You bet. It's not often we get parties thrown in our favor, said Naruto beaming. Chrysalis laughed. She laughed even harder when Naruto accidentally ate a cupcake covered in super strong hot sauce. He looked like his mane was on fire. Naruto got along scarily well with Pinky. Chrysalis would fear for what was in store for Konoha if she didn't plan to record the whole thing for a laugh later. Naruto came back to Konoha and realized that someone had noted his disappearance. The Anbu took him directly to the Hokage to learn where the heck the boy had vanished. You reverse summoned yourself to the changeling hive and meet the pony summons, are you an insane boy? Yelled Sarutobi. It's not that bad there. Sure, I ended up as a horse with wings, but it was rather fun, said Naruto unrepentant. He had been lectured one too many times after a prank. A little thing like logic wasn't going to bother him now. Naruto, do you have any idea how easy it would have been to be stuck in the summon realms? Even Jiraiya doesn't reverse summon himself without something to anchor him back here. Prize decided to speak up at this point. Actually, he doesn't need one. Because of the odd nature of the moon here and the fact that the Juubi wasn't sealed in the one inside the summoned realm, the chances of him being stuck in Equestria or the hive are extremely remote. Thanks to Kyuubi, Naruto can come and go between both worlds without getting stuck unless someone or something deliberately tampers with the ability. Besides, as long as there are changelings on the side, he can reverse summon himself back, though where he would end up would be random, said Chrysalis. Sarutobi's eyes twitched. Are you telling me that because Naruto has the nine-tailed fox inside of him, he will never be stuck between worlds unless direct interference causes it? The 9 tails and the once powerful 10 are intertwined. It is impossible for Naruto to lose his way unless he doesn't want to come back, Chrysalis said flatly. Sarutobi looked at the bored Naruto. Naruto, would you be willing to explore the summons realm, particularly Equestria? Information on it is sorely lacking, and you would be given S-rank pay to investigate, said Sarutobi. Not a problem, old man. Ponyville was awesome. Sarutobi looked at Cries. I took him to one of the smaller towns, which happened to be less than a day's distance by train to the capital. Apparently he hit it off rather well with many of the inhabitants. It doesn't hurt that whenever he reverse summons himself, he turns into a Pegasus pony either, said Chrysalis with a shrug. He what? Apparently reverse summoning without the help of the contracted species results in the person taking the form of whatever species inhabits that area. At least it does in Equestria, where humans are a mere myth because their contract has not been used in centuries at the least. As such, when he arrived at the hive, he became an orange Pegasus with a blonde spiked mane. The only reason I knew it was him was because of the fox. I need a drink, muttered Sarutobi. You and I both. The closest ponies come to liquor is cider, at least in my experience. In any case, Naruto, now you have something to do on your days off, said the Hokage. Naruto grinned at him. Exploring Equestria wasn't nearly as boring as being kept from training in ninja scrolls. And it gave him something to do when he was banned from pranks. Anko gave them the permission slips the second the Hokage announced the exams were about to begin. Because she was their sensei, she couldn't proctor the second part like she usually did. Nor could she tell them what the first part was about, even if she knew for a fact Naruto and Cries could pass it with flying colors. She did, however, tell Naruto to keep a few clones out and hang them before he went into the room. That was as close as helping him as she could get. In the meantime, Naruto had spent the past week trying to grow some apple trees from the cores of the apples he got from the apple bucking session. He had a few saplings, but he couldn't tell what was wrong with the trees, as according to Chrysalis, it usually took a few weeks for the trees in Equestria to be fully grown. However, Naruto was nothing if not persistent, and he planned to keep it up even if he had to ask Applejack for help. Naruto was about to head out for ramen when he spotted trouble. Konohamaru was annoying at the best of times, but he was still like a little brother to him. So when he spotted a sand genin about to hit him, Naruto reacted like anyone would have. He snuck up behind the cat-eared guy and slammed his fist into the guy's head. Konohamaru landed with a thud and quickly hid behind Naruto. Sakura, who had been chasing the annoying little brat until he got into trouble with the foreigner, glared at him. Who the hell do you think you are? Demanded the boy, glaring at Naruto. My name is Naruto, and you should be thanking me, moron. The kid you were about to pulverize is the grandson of the third. As in the guy who decides whether or not you're even allowed to take the exams. Said Naruto, raising an eyebrow. He was pleased to see the sand genin pale when he heard who he was about to beat up. Seeing Naruto casually note the Anbu nearby, the genin paled even further. If he had punched the brat, he would have been taken in for questioning, and he knew Gaara would be pissed off. Possibly enough to kill him. Naruto noted the person on the branch as he casually said, "Hey Ed, you hungry? I know a great ramen stand." If Kankuro was pale before, he was white as a ghost now. Gaara dropped down and gave the blonde a look. It depends. How good is this place? The best damn ramen you'll ever have. "Come on, the first bowl is my treat," said Naruto. "We will join you," said Gaara. Naruto was bored. The first and second half of the exam was over, and that left him an entire month to train alone. Anko was working with the Hive kids, Asuma was taking a few missions to pay for the meal Choji ate for making it that far, he had seen similar tears from Iruka whenever the man treated him to ramen, and Kryze was busy making sense of some reports that the minions had recently given her. Which meant he had nothing to do. So, Naruto decided to visit Ponyville again. Pinky had some great prank ideas last time, and anything he did there wouldn't hurt his chances at Chunin like they would here. With a loud poof, he vanished into the hive, missing a certain Toad Sage by a minute. Naruto didn't know how far Ponyville was, one minion told him the equivalent of length from the hive to Canterlot was roughly the same, as if he had walked or flown from Konoha to Rain, and since he only knew of one way to Ponyville that didn't take forever, he tried his luck at the spell Kryze had used last time. 5 hours passed uneventfully. The minions went about their orders without bothering him, though occasionally they would answer a question he had about the magic part. Naruto had long since replaced the word magic with chakra every time he heard it. Finally, in a fit of frustration, he channeled altered chakra into his wings. To the surprise of the minions working, the wings glowed purple and Naruto vanished into thin air. One of them, who had been close enough to get caught in the light, vanished with him. Chrysalis was jolted out of her reports by the minions still at the hive. Naruto had vanished without any warning, taking one of the minions with him. She rubbed her head with her human hand, reports were easier to ride as a human. That boy was going to be the death of her. It took her 10 minutes to narrow down which minion he accidentally took with him, and she gaped in shock. Somehow that boy had teleported himself from the hive to Cloudsdale. That was nearly as far as Kumo is from Konoha. The minion had enough time to turn into a random Pegasus before the ponies figured out he was a changeling. Kryze had 2 options. Either she rescued Naruto or she could go back to her reports and deal with it later. After she saw how late it was, she opted to head to sleep early. It wasn't like Naruto was in any danger in Equestria, and the minion would send her a warning long before he really got into trouble. Naruto was having a blast. Now that he had figured out how to teleport by channeling an even mixture of his chakra with the fox, he could go anywhere he wanted. Sure, he had to take the minion with him, but that was a small price to pay. His second attempt took him to Ponyville, where he found a nice cloud and fell straight asleep. He woke up when Rainbow Dash dumped an entire cloud's worth of rain on him. He could hear the minion snickering, and he hissed back, "Traitor." Rainbow laughed as Naruto shook the water from his mane and fur. "Payback for that race?" he asked, grinning. Rainbow nodded, still laughing. "Oh, it is so on," cackled Naruto. Ponyville would be hit by a rash of pranks from the two, later joined by Pinky. About the only ones they didn't hit were Fluttershy, Granny Smith and various other ponies. Rainbow Dash seemed very surprised to learn Naruto had to learn how to fly and do things most Pegasus took for granted like cloud walking all on his own. Pinky had overdramatized the whole thing, but even Rainbow could tell she was affected by the fact Naruto had almost no idea about what his parents were like and had to raise himself until he was old enough to enter school. As a result, Rainbow offered to show him a few aerial moves and how to move clouds. Naruto had little luck with clouds, as it seemed that weather wasn't his specialty. Flying, however, was. Naruto would later find out this was because he had a wind affinity, which meant he had a natural knack for air. For some reason, Rainbow was actually startled when she saw the sheer power of his legs. Most Pegasus ponies had trouble bucking one tree to release apples. Naruto could do it with a well-placed kick. Using one leg. According to him, it had taken some trial and error to figure out where to hit it. Fortunately for Rainbow Dash's pride, Naruto couldn't go as fast as she could. Sure, he was close, but he had trouble avoiding things like trees at high speeds. Rainbow had nearly laughed herself sick when he crashed into a tree 5 times in a row. Naruto simply stuck his tongue out at her. Since he didn't have anywhere to go, and he wanted to see the summer sun celebration, apparently he had missed all the others, since he tended to live away from other ponies, he nearly gave Rainbow a heart attack when he mentioned he lived in a forest most of his life, which would happen in 2 days. Of course he had to send his friend back to tell Kryze, the unicorn he had been with last time, that he would be staying a few days. Kryze told him it was okay, and he ended up bunking at Fluttershy's cottage, though for some reason the animals were giving him odd looks. Naruto was one of the first ones to notice the carriage carrying a purple unicorn and some sort of lizard. And since he knew how much Pinky loved to greet newcomers, he flew over to the Earth Mare and told her about the carriage. Naturally the party pony had to greet them, but she made it look natural. Upon closer inspection, Naruto noted a few things. For one thing, the new unicorn seemed to rely more on chakra attacks and not weapons. She had the bare minimum of weaponry, and that was it. There was also the fact that over the course of working with the Hive kids, he had learned to detect an opponent's chakra strength, at least a little bit. This unicorn had a lot of chakra magic. In fact, hers was close to Kakashi's level at least. She had nothing on Cries, Anko or Naruto. So Naruto discreetly followed her around town and he wasn't impressed with her at all. She was a snob. All she cared about was getting her job done and heading to the library as fast as she could. Sure, she got through the checklist, but she did the bare minimum, and that was it. It infuriated him. Fortunately, he wasn't in charge of anything aside from helping Rarity with the preparations. He had a feeling Ino would get along great with Rarity, they were divas after all. Which meant he got to watch the unicorn deal with an inspired Rarity in full creator mode. The unicorn fled the second Rarity turned her back. Thankfully she did leave the outfit behind. Naruto snickered. "Hey Fluttershy, whatever happened to that albino kit that I saw last time?" asked Naruto. They were going to the library for the welcome party Pinky threw for the unicorn. "You mean that baby fox?" she asked. Naruto nodded. "He is doing fine, though he doesn't seem to like socializing with the other animals. He barely eats," she said sadly. "Maybe I could help the little guy. Foxes seem to like me for some reason," said Naruto. She led him to the small den the fox kid had made and it refused to come out. "Come on little guy, it's not so bad outside," Naruto coaxed. The fox, when it heard his voice, poked its head out. It barked in greeting to the great fox. Just to be clear here, Naruto doesn't have better luck with animals than Fluttershy. Only with foxes. Everything else is wary of him until enough time has passed. Naruto held out a hoof for the baby fox to jump on. Fluttershy looked happy that the albino fox kid seemed to get along with someone, even if it refused to work with her. "I don't understand. How were you able to get it to come out?" she asked. "Foxes like me. I guess it didn't think you were strong enough to listen to, and since its mother didn't want it didn't want to socialize. If you're having trouble with the little guy, is it okay if I take him with me?" "Sure. He can be your pet," said Fluttershy. Note to self, ask Cries more about ponies when I get back, thought Naruto. He didn't know they took pets like humans did. Naruto left the fox in the house since he didn't think it would appreciate the noise level of the party. All it took was a promise to take it with him when he went back to his home and it stayed out of the den. Naruto was having a blast. Seeing that snobby unicorn run like her mane was on fire was funny. He dared to eat Pinky's special cupcake and he didn't notice a thing aside from the looks of the others. Hey, he once drank bad milk and survived only with a bad case of diarrhea. A little thing like hot sauce on a cupcake wasn't going to faze him. The fox inside him disagreed. Well, he could tolerate the overabundance of ramen the brat ate, his fur nearly went on fire when the kid ate that laced cupcake. Things were great right until he was about to get his first look at the princess. Naruto wasn't a big fan of Celestia because he had heard what she did to her own sister, according to Cries, who was working on the memories of past queens. He actually felt more sympathy for Princess Luna than he did Celestia. Oddly enough, he was watching the sky rather than the area where the princess was due to arrive. That was why he caught the clustering of stars circling the moon right before the odd shape of a mare in the moon vanished entirely. Naruto shrugged it off, after all he barely knew anything about Equestria. When the sun was still down and Rarity came back looking surprised, he knew something was up. Seeing the dark horse with the starry mane only confirmed it. Unlike the girls, Naruto didn't follow the bratty unicorn who had arrived earlier. Instead he followed the trail of chakra he felt from the alicorn, as Cries had called it. Naruto had no idea there was a name for a unicorn-Pegasus crossbreed. "Where the heck is this?" he said aloud. It looked like a ruined castle, but not like one he had ever seen before. He passed by an odd statue with 5 balls on different levels, not noticing the fact they glowed briefly when he was close to it. In front of the throne was the same alicorn who had crashed the celebration. "So there was someone foolish enough to follow me. Unless you are here to swear your loyalty to me," she smirked. "Nah, I don't swear, unless things really turn out to be bad. Anko has been improving that end. I just came to find out more about you. For instance, are you the same pony that was sealed by Celestia 1,000 years ago?" he asked. Nightmare Moon snarled. She didn't want to be reminded of that fact. Naruto took her reaction to that question as a yes. There was something he had wanted to do to Princess Luna ever since Cries told him about it. Nightmare Moon was caught off guard entirely when the Pegasus colt hugged her. "What in blazes are you doing?" she nearly shrieked, though she actually liked the feeling of physical affection. Being on the moon alone for 1,000 years taught you how to appreciate such things. Celestia is an idiot. She shouldn't have left you on the moon for 1,000 years simply because of an argument, said Naruto flatly. He knew all too well the pain of being alone. He had to endure it with a fake smile for years until he accidentally summoned Chrysalis. That was why the story of Celestia sealing her own sister in the moon had struck a chord with him. Nightmare Moon was taken aback by his words. "You don't worship Celestia," she said carefully. "I'm actually a human shinobi with a summoning contract with the changelings. I've had little love for this Sun Princess since I heard she was cruel enough to seal her own sister in the moon just because she was tired of being ignored. And to be honest, I like nighttime better than daytime anyway." "You're a human? Then why do you look like a Pegasus?" she asked, eyes narrowing. Nothing made sense at the moment and she could feel the magic she had left behind on the way here being bypassed by that unicorn and her friends. "I have no idea and neither does Kryze. She said it had to do with the fact that I didn't bother to use a changeling to get here and that somewhere along the way my body shifted to that of the native species along with a long line of technobabble I didn't get. She's still wondering why I haven't gotten a cutie mark, whatever that is." "Cutie marks are a sign that tells everyone what your unique talent is," said Nightmare. There was something about this cold human she liked. He was bluntly honest, yet he understood her very well. The fact he wasn't afraid to hug her, even after the show she put on in front of the ponies, spoke volumes about his courage and kindness. When she felt the serpent test completed, she stood straighter. "Are you with that unicorn?" she asked, wary. "You mean that bratty one that showed up earlier?" "No way. The others, well they're nice enough. But I don't like the unicorn that much." Nightmare Moon quirked a fanged grin and got one in return. Yes, she likes this human. She felt the Shadow Bolt test start up and noticed something. All the elements were shining, though they hadn't activated. The only reason that would happen was if they had chosen a new bearer, but who? Naruto hid while Nightmare gave the girls a good scare. He could tell she was in real pain after being freed after so long. She didn't want to hurt them, no matter what she claimed. Time to see if that unicorn was as big a brat as he had assumed. Naruto was mildly impressed by the dedication this Twilight had to her new friends. That being said, he still didn't like her that much. Later when Kryze reviewed his initial meeting she realized why he wasn't so nice to her. The girl was OCD, whereas Naruto was a bundle of chaotic energy. The two simply didn't mesh properly. Naruto watched as the elements of harmony, something Kryze had spoken of with distaste, as it was the reason Celestia had been able to seal her own sister in the moon, surrounded the girls. No one noticed that the light also touched Naruto, though instead of a crown, he had some sort of collar around his neck. But that wasn't the biggest change he would learn about. No, that came once the dust had settled and Luna had made up with her sister. He had gotten his cutie mark, though he had no idea what it meant. But first, there was his initial meeting with Celestia. It could have gone better. Much, much better. Naruto checked on Luna discreetly while the girls were busy bowing. She seemed to appreciate the fact someone bothered to care. She wasn't the only one startled when Naruto actually growled at Celestia. "So you're Princess Celestia. I can see why Kryze didn't speak that highly of you," said Naruto. "I do not recognize you. And I recognize most ponies," she said. There was also the fact she didn't know what his cutie mark meant, which was very unusual since she had seen all things under the sun. "You wouldn't recognize me because I'm not a natural born pony. For some reason I turn into one whenever I come here. May I ask why you seem to dislike me so?" she said. "Simple. I don't like the way you handled the fact Luna was tired of being in your shadow. Sisters are supposed to love and care for each other, differences aside. You should have tried to find a solution both of you could accept instead of sealing her in the moon for 1,000 years. Do you have any idea what it's like to be alone, truly alone?" Luna looked at him in shock. From the way he said that, he understood exactly what she had gone through. "I did try to reason with her. But she was so bitter about it that she refused to listen to reason. And it never occurred to you to let her have her own castle and kingdom so she could rule on her own without you overshadowing her. From what Kryze told me, you and Luna shared the same castle. Even though I know that trying to rule together without some space is going to end badly." From the look on Celestia's face, it never did occur to her to let her sister rule somewhere else. Though Luna apparently had been angry enough at being overshadowed that it had occurred to her, she never had the chance to try it. Naruto did glare at the bratty unicorn who looked very affronted at how he challenged Celestia. He pegged her as a teacher's pet the same level Haruno was and left it at that. "I take it you get this from your own siblings?" she asked. Naruto gave her a rather odd look for the ponies. Chrysalis could have interpreted it as flat. With so much niceness in Equestria, it was little wonder that they would have difficulty interpreting the look Naruto had on his face unless they had regular contact with a snide griffin. "My parents died the day I was born and I was their first child," he said flatly, not caring about the flinch he drew from everyone there. It only grew worse as he continued. "And I am ostracized by my village both for being born on the worst day possible and for the birthmarks I got because of what my mother was. And because I inherited her legacy, most people would be very pleased if I dropped dead on the street." I never even had any friends until I accidentally summoned one and entered a summoning contract with a species that no one had ever heard of before, let alone knew what they did. Cries practically raised me since she learned how bad my living conditions were, he said bluntly. Naruto, I believe you've horrified them enough. The old man is getting worried since he hasn't heard a word from you since Tuesday, said Cries. Sorry, Cries, got carried away. Anyway, Luna, I'll see you later. Bye, Applejack, Rarity, Pinky, Fluttershy, and Rainbow, said Naruto. He did stop by Fluttershy's cottage to get his new pet though. Cries was snickering as she heard a blow-by-blow account of what Naruto did. Finding out he had somehow learned the teleport spell, even though Pegasus ponies shouldn't be able to, didn't surprise her. Naruto lived to screw with reality. Finding out he had actually chastised Celestia for what she did to Luna 1000 years ago was icing on the cake. She was howling when she heard his opinion of Celestia's new prized student. Comparing the girl to Sakura was cruel, but very accurate. She was so amused that she warned him about the old perv, who had been looking for him of late before she took him home. Naruto's first impression of Jiraiya was that the man was a glorified pervert who loved to ham it up. Then he heard from the Kyuubi that the man was also his godfather, and he was pissed beyond reason. Had the man actually done his job, he might have had an actual childhood. About the only reason he didn't kick the man outright was because if he hadn't left Naruto all alone to face the mobs, he wouldn't have met Cries. That didn't stop Naruto from pranking the living hell out of the man for a week straight. The only reason he was spared was because Naruto accidentally learned what the odd marking on his flanks meant that he had gotten from the light the elements of harmony gave off. Poor Konoha was never the same, snicker. Cries was at an outdoor cafe with Anko chatting. Is it wrong of me to say I feel sorry for the village now that Naruto has that new trick of his to play with? Nope. He's just lucky the old man didn't realize he was the cause of that explosion, though that was one hell of a stunt, said Anko chuckling. Naruto, once again displaying that the rules of reality do not apply to him in any sense, somehow managed to create what Cries called a sonic rainbow mere days after triggering his special talent, which was apparently the ability to go between worlds without using a summoning or reverse summoning. His cutie mark is the twin rings from the Portal games. Do I really need to explain more than that? As a side effect, he could now take his pony form outside Equestria. Because everyone assumed he was someone summoned, he used this to his advantage. Then he started performing aerial stunts out of boredom, which led to him breaking the sound barrier and causing a sonic rainbow in the middle of town. He shattered nearly every window in the village and caused mass hysteria. It was only because no one knew what the hell caused it that he didn't pay for damages. Well, that and no one knew who the odd horse summon belonged to. Before anyone complains, I would like to remind you that he is the son of a known speed demon and is used to outrunning the Anbu since before he hit double digits. This is why he can keep up with Rainbow Dash in a race. So has the kid actually learned anything from that old perv? Aside from a new spinny ball of doom, no. Idiot tried to get him to sign the Toad contract but didn't realize I was behind him. You should have heard him scream when he found out I was the same Chrissy who worked at the Keen. I see him there occasionally, but I never knew he was the same Jiraiya I beat out in the spy trade, Cries smirked. Anko howled with appreciative laughter. You know, there is something I always wanted to ask. What if the council ever dared to kick Naruto out? You practically run the entire spy trade for the village, yet your only loyalty is to Naruto. Cries drank her tea for a moment before she answered. If they were ever that idiotic, then Konoha would fall. What they failed to note was that my minions had been running interference for years, particularly when it came to erasing Root's missions from existence. And with the spy trade leaving with Naruto, because I would leave and take the hive children with me, the village would be vulnerable to attack. Not to mention that in a bit of spite I would order the minions to remove their illusions for the ninja to see and let the world know Konoha was open for the taking. I would imagine Kumo and Iwa would jump at the chance to take out the village once they learned the spies were gone from theirs and that their greatest asset was banished. With his new ability we could watch the village burn to the ground from the hive, she replied. Anko was surprisingly sober when she heard that. You know, it's things like that which make me very glad you're on our side for the moment. Like I said before. My only loyalty is to Naruto. Mind giving me a heads up in case you ever decide to turn so I can leave with you? Cries grinned. Anko was one of the few people she liked. Of course. Call it professional courtesy. Naruto stood before the stadium. The only ones missing were Sasuke and that guy Dosu, though from what Gaara told him, after he barely managed to pacify his fellow after startling him one night in pony form, that idiot was long since dead. Since his match was first, Naruto got to stay below, while everyone else went up to the contestants' booth. Insert Niji's fate spiel. Naruto didn't think twice. Thanks to his new pony form being available back in his own home, his speed had jumped up. Niji was left in the dust as Naruto ran circles around him. Almost literally, in fact. Niji looked at Naruto suspiciously. Have you been learning from Guy-sensei? He asked after a moment. Nope. Been developing my own speed for fun. Something about that clicked with Niji. He glared at Naruto with all his might. It was you. You're the idiot who broke every window in the village. Do you have any idea how long it took to clean up that glass? You can't prove a thing. Shrieked Naruto. Niji put the boy in a headlock, clearly pissed off. You annoying brat. I know it was you. Everyone knows about your weird summons. You're the only person in the entire village, let alone the country with horse summons. Naruto and Cries twitched in annoyance. They are called ponies, idiot. They yelled in unison. Niji nearly lost his hearing from being too close to Naruto's mouth when he yelled. And that wasn't a horse dumbus. It was a Pegasus, said Naruto, displaying an unusual amount of flexibility to kick Niji in the head from behind using his legs. Not even Lee could pull something like that off. Tenten was the only one to say what most people were thinking, well, the shinobi anyway. Naruto. Pegasus are a breed of horse. A mythological breed, but still a horse. Yes, but they call themselves ponies. Therefore your argument is made invalid, retorted the blonde. They had nothing to say to that except. So are you the one to ruin all those windows in the village? Demanded Niji, putting more pressure on his neck. I'm a ninja for Kami's sake. What the hell have you been smoking if you think I would be stupid enough to admit to something like that in front of so many witnesses? Deadpan Naruto. And once again, everyone blinked twice. He was entirely correct. And he was being smart. The Hokage was highly tempted to give him a vest for that remark alone. Cries noted the unusual amount of Odonin when none of theirs had made it to the finals. So, she gave the order to all active Konoha changelings to prepare for a fight. It helped that they could copy some of the stronger shinobi in the village, among others. She couldn't wait to see the look on the sound idiots' faces when they realized they were fighting identical copies of Ibiki, Anko, Kakashi, Zabuza. She just hoped that the minions had enough hidden cameras stashed around the village. Naruto beat Niji by overpowering him. Once he was up in the contestants' booth, Cries handed him several bowls of Ichiraku ramen to recharge. He would need it later. When the feathers began to fall, all eyes turned to the Hokage. Who was immediately trapped in a purple box by 4 of Orochimaru's henchmen. When he went to attack, he found himself facing a hissing changeling. Cries cackled much like Anko would at the look of fury on his face, particularly when Sarutobi dispelled the mass and called the village to arms. Her cruel laughter when she told the changelings to have fun sent shivers down the enemy's spine. Because their definition of having fun meant draining them of all the love in them. They could partially see into the victim's mind, made it much easier to steal the energy, so it was child's play to turn into their loved ones and feed on them. Considering Cries had never let them play with ninja before, she got a real head rush from the energy they were sending back. Hey Cries. I gotta chase Gaara, can I bring a bunch of minions with me to make a copy of Mr. Fuzzy? Asked Naruto. That would be interesting to see. Let me know when you're about to do it so I can tape it, she said. While changelings were primarily feared because of their ability to transform, they weren't exactly happy with the fact that the boss summon of their set happened to be the queen. It was a sad but true fact that their primary function was as spies and infiltrators, which meant the less reputable set tried to stab them in the back a lot. This was because they didn't fear the queen of all. Even ponies were feared more than changelings, and they were considered weaker. However, if Naruto were able to successfully duplicate a Biju, then their standing among the summons would shoot through the roof. She really wanted him to pull this off. Especially since the ones he planned to summon were some of the weaker members. Orochimaru was pissed. There was no other word for it. He had heard rumors of these horse-bug hybrids, but he had never believed that they could successfully duplicate anyone they wished to. He had no idea it wasn't his old teacher until the transformation wore off. And then the old man had the gall to appear and dispel the mass, meaning the leaf got reinforcements. The bug was killed quickly, far too quickly for his taste. Unfortunately he couldn't leave the barrier because the Anbu were just waiting to swoop in and attack. All he knew was that if he survived this, then he was going to do a very thorough sweep of his bases. If they could copy Sarutobi to the point he couldn't detect it, then they could have infiltrated his base. Naruto was following Gaara rather closely. He had a feeling that Gaara was much like Nightmare Moon had been in Cries, had he not summoned her so early in her promotion to queen. The last time he had seen Luna, formerly Nightmare Moon, who apparently wasn't as gone as Celestia and the girls wanted her to be according to Luna, Nightmare was much like the Kyuubi was to him. Sealed, but not forgotten in the least, she had offered to let him sign the pony contract. Naruto had declined for the moment since he needed to run that by Cries first. Considering how long he had known the changeling queen, she had accepted that as an answer. What he didn't know was that she had approached Cries a few months back to offer her personal contract for Naruto. Cries was still debating whether or not to trust Celestia's sister. However, Naruto couldn't wait to introduce Gaara to Pinky. If anyone could help the Redeed lighten up and learn that killing everyone is actually quite boring after a while, it was her. Prize had once remarked that Pinky was the equestrian version of Naruto, only she focused more on sweets and parties than ramen and pranks. It was a horrifying comparison for everyone but Naruto. Gaara rasped. Mother wanted out. She wanted the blonde boy dead, his blood spilling on the ground. Even when the boy stopped his initial transformation, he couldn't stop this one. And when he fell asleep, he assumed that he would awake when Mother was finished destroying everything in sight. Naruto knew this was his one shot. Either they found a way to do the impossible, or Konoha was in deep shit. He hovered above the 100 minions he had summoned. Summoning minions cost about as much as a shadow clone, funnily enough, and prepared. Ready, boys and girls. Let's show them what happens when you mess with the changeling army, he said. He could hear the buzz of agreement from the minions. It amused the Hokage greatly that he was considered an honorary Abiram because he could understand hives speak without human words. Transform. Where 100 changeling minions, relatively on the same class as worker bee drones, had been, there was now a very large 9-tailed fox. Ha! Well done, brat. You're even more unpredictable than your mother, and that's saying something. Cackled Kyuubi in his head. The massive paw of the Kyuubi sent Shikaku barreling into trees. Even when its fur was partially shifted, it went back to fox form and attacked the same way Kyuubi actually would. It didn't hurt that Naruto had allowed Kyuubi to command the minions in order to make it that much more real. When Kyuubi told him to wake up the Suna brat, Naruto obliged by headbutting him. The teen fell from the crumbling sand and Naruto switched back to human in time to catch the boy. Gaara stared at him, wide-eyed. He was completely out of chakra. Yet Naruto still had hundreds of changelings out waiting. He looked back and said, clearly help the Anbu with the mop up. Don't let that bastard Danzo get all the credit. The minions buzzed before flying off. A few stayed behind as protection though. Why? Rasped Gaara. Why haven't you ordered them to kill me yet? Why should I? Gaara, what reason would I have to kill someone like me? In fact, I know someone who would love to show you how to make people notice you without killing people, said Naruto. And that was when Naruto introduced Gaara to the most random creature in the summons realm. The pony named Pinkie Pie. Suna would never be the same once Pinkie introduced Gaara to pranks. Prize was howling when she heard what Naruto did. Already rumors had spread about a pink demon that pranked the living hell out of Suna. Gaara had learned how to reverse summon rather quickly, so Naruto had a way to talk to him without having to travel 3 days to do it. Needless to say, Naruto was kept gleefully appraised of things in Suna. Prize had her minions record every prank so he could watch the fallout from the hive. Of course, that was nothing compared to what happened when Naruto and Gaara happened to be visiting Ponyville one day when a small creature happened to be found by Fluttershy. Is it me, or is Pinkie acting odder than usual? Asked Gaara. It's not you. Why does she need so many instruments? Wanting to know the answer, Naruto stopped Pinkie long enough to get an explanation. So these bug things are called parasprites. Yup. Annoying critters, said Pinkie. And they happen to be as voracious as me near Ramen, said Naruto. They eat anything they can get their claws on and multiply like crazy, confirmed Pinkie. So what are the instruments for then? Asked Naruto, dodging yet another pony. He had been flying alongside Pinkie the entire time. It's called the parasprite polka. You play it to draw them away from your home and back into the forests, said Pinkie. And you haven't told Ms. OCD yet because Naruto liked Ponyville. He didn't like Twilight that much. He had only run into her twice since the whole Nightmare Moon incident and she was still pretty mad he had told Celestia. However, he stood by his comment that maybe the whole thing could have been smoothed over if Celestia had just let Luna live in another kingdom instead of the same castle. Luna was still coming to terms with her more perverted side talking to her. Where she was friendly and proper, Nightmare was perverted and mischievous. Celestia was already complaining about Nightmare harassing the night staff. Unfortunately, she couldn't banish that aspect of her sister without sealing her in the moon again. Not that she could, now that Twilight and her friends are controlling the elements of harmony. Finally, right after Twilight messed things up by accidentally making the parasprites eat things other than food, which meant a ton of repairs, Pinkie came and drew them back to the forest. Naruto was snickering at the lavender-colored unicorn at the look of shock on her face. She glared at him. Prize was helping with repairs to the Keen. Some idiots from Odo thought the girls would be easy to attack, but were quickly taken out, even if the building suffered structural damage from an earth when she saw bright red hair heading towards a bar. The headband said the girl was from Kusa. However, a quick check with certain minions said her origin was Uzushi Agakure, which pegged her as a Uzumaki. Prize grinned. The girl was already through 1 bottle of sake when they called it a day. Because of the mess in the village, getting out was slow. Clearly this girl wasn't in any hurry to get home. Mind if I join you? she asked. Go for it. My life is shitty enough, said the girl. Chrissy. Karen, said the retard, holding out her hand. So what brought you to Konoha? Junin exam. Idiot teammates got killed in the forest and my Dumba sensei got taken out by an Odonin during the invasion. I'm the only one heading back to Kusa, so I really don't want to head back at the moment. Not with bandits on the road and no backup. Understandable. But what if I was to tell you that there is another Uzumaki in the village? Said Cries. How did you, said Karen, turning to look at her drinking partner. My partner happens to be Uzumaki, and according to those who knew them, red hair like yours is a genetic trait. My partner for some reason got his father's blonde hair though. Karen slammed back another cup. He's a full-blooded Uzumaki. Are you sure? Stamina freak, loves pranks and ramen, and an affinity towards sealing. Sound familiar? Karen started. Can I meet him first? Prize grinned. It was only a matter of time before Karen joined their family. Naruto was like a puppy on a leash about to go for a fun walk. He was that excited about having a living family willing to claim him. Haku and Gaara came close, but it wasn't the same. Karen stared at him like he was a ghost. Are you by any chance Kushina Uzumaki's son? Naruto grinned. Screw Kusa. I'm staying here. You know how often I see another Uzumaki, declared Karen. Once I'm done with that girl we captured, there will be two, said Cries. Came the dual responses of Karen and Naruto. Anko and I suspect that one of Orochimaru's group, the lone female to be exact, is in Uzumaki. She has the right hair for it and according to Anko, she acts much like Kushina did around idiots who pissed her off. Because of the invasion the blood work is a bit slow, Cries clarified. Remember what the old man said. We need 5 members to be recognized as a clan again in the eyes of the council, said Naruto excitedly. If this girl Taiya pans out, we would only need a few more people. Didn't the first Hokage marry a Uzumaki? Asked Karen. Come to think of it, yes. Alright, Karen, you have 2 choices. Stick around here for a while and join the reconstruction effort. Or let Naruto drop you off in either Ponyville or Canterlot until he and Jiraiya return. Last I heard the council ordered him to find Tsunade in order to take the post of Hokage. As his apprentice and the fact he is Naruto's godfather, no, Naruto, you can't beat him up just yet. If he tries to trick you into signing the Toad contract, get some blackmail material for me. Anyway Naruto, I want you to go with him. If any problems arise, portal back to Equestria immediately. Hi, said Naruto. Equestria. Ponyville. Canterlot, said Karen. Let me put it this way. Do you like cute things or horses? I like cute things, but I'm not too sure about horses. Then you might like Equestria. Perhaps Luna can help you with your or something. Kami knows she's been bored out of her mind since she came back. In the end, Karen decided to chill out with Luna, who was in fact quite bored, instead of being stuck in Konoha. At least in Equestria she wouldn't have to deal with people asking her to leave. So what made you change your mind? Asked Jiraiya. Cry said that the easiest way to reform the clan was to find 2 more Uzumaki, and since Tsunade is the granddaughter of the 1RST Hokage and his Uzumaki wife, then we would only need 1 more. Cry she that pink-haired one or the one with the ice bloodline? She's the one who works at Keen and lives in the same house as me. You mean Chrissy Hive, the best and hottest dancer at Keen? How in the hell did you land her as a roommate? Who do you think kicked you out of the Konoha spy game? Naruto shot back. No way in hell. How could a hot eye like Chrissy kick me out of the spy game? Who said her name was Chrissy? Her real name is Chrysalis. And by the way, she happens to be the boss of my contract, growling at Naruto. How but wah? Jiraiya stammered. Naruto smirked, and his hands flew through a familiar series of hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Jiraiya paled when he saw the changeling in all its glory. Jiraiya, meet Bob. Bob, meet the Dumbus who thinks toads are better than Chrysalis. The changeling hissed at him. What the hell is that? He said. Changeling. Bob, if you would. The changeling affectionately known as Bob seemed to smirk as it turned into a sneering Jiraiya. What the hell? Meet the perfect shinobi summon. One that can take the form of anyone or anything. And everything they see gets sent back to Cries, who informs the Hokage for beer and pay, Naruto smugly informs him. You mean to tell me that my spy network was knocked off by a bug horse thing? Changeling. Their transformation is so perfect that it's nearly impossible to tell the fake from the original, said Naruto smugly. How good is their transformation? After observing the target, perfect. Like I said, the ultimate summon for a shinobi. After all, shinobi are supposed to be masters of stealth and speed, something most people tend to forget. Something this Chrysalis taught you? She practically raised me once I got the hang of summoning, said Naruto flatly. Jiraiya needed a drink. Badly. Which was why once they hit a town he got so drunk he could barely see straight. Itachi knocked on the door. It was only polite. Naruto took one look at Kisame and Itachi, closed the door, and then jumped out the window right into a hastily made portal to Equestria. No way in hell was he fighting Sasuke's psychotic older brother and one of the damned swordsmen of the Bloody Mist. He was so eager to get out of that hotel that he neglected to set the destination. He ended up in a bath with Luna and Nightmare Moon. Nightmare gave him a fanged grin as she said, "My, Naruto, I didn't know you were so forward." Naruto and Luna groaned in unison. Nightmare was such a pervert. So Sasuke's crazy older brother and an S-rank criminal showed up at your hotel room. No wonder you were in such a hurry you forgot to set the landing, said Luna. At least it was a sun girl in there, he muttered. Naruto did not like Celestia. Sure, she was a good ruler, but he didn't agree with the fact she had sealed up her sister. He would work with her if he had to, but that didn't mean he had to like it. That was probably why Nightmare absolutely adored him. By the way, is Karen from your world? Asked Luna. Cousin? Thought so. She seems to enjoy the Canterlot library. At least someone stargazes with me and Nightmare at night. And she's the best assistant I currently have since the last one quit. You were using the royal Canterlot voice too much again, weren't you? Said Naruto knowingly. Karen mentioned it offhand that I was being too loud, said Luna blushing. Cry said I could sign your contract when I asked. I think she likes you and Nightmare more than she does Celestia. That reminds me. Next time you see Queen Chrysalis, could you tell her to tone down the attacks on ponies? We've had 10 in the last month, all by changelings. That's odd. Cry's never ordered any attacks on the ponies. The hive is more than fed by feeding on the lust of humans, said Naruto in confusion. But some pony fitting her description was seen twice at the attacks. And a few ponies were taken in the confusion of the last 3 attacks, said Luna. Okay, now I know it wasn't her. Cries would never kidnap ponies. She said they are way too much of a hassle to deal with. Not to mention the stink Celestia would raise if she tried. I said as much to my sister, but these attacks get worse each time. Could she look into it? Asked Luna. I'll tell her. What do you mean changelings are attacking ponies? I never ordered any such attacks. Yelled Cries when Naruto delivered Luna's message. I know that, and Luna didn't really believe you were behind it either. That's why she told me about it. She wanted to be sure that you were innocent, said Naruto, holding his ears. Yet another reason I prefer Luna to Celestia. But this is troubling news. We only recently started to rise in the ranks of the summon clans because of that trick you pulled by recreating the Kyuubi using only minions. If word got out about a rogue hive, or worse, a civil war between the changelings. One of the weaker clans could take us out in a bid for power, Naruto finished. He knew that if anything happened to Cries or the hive, then the effects would rebound onto Konoha very quickly. She had integrated the hive too strongly for them to be separated without any repercussions. A blow to the hive meant a blow to Konoha as a whole. Unfortunately, due to clan politics, Naruto couldn't help the hive unless he married Chrysalis and became Changeling King. Even though he qualified as a hive on his own thanks to shadow clones. Naruto hated politics. Being nice to people who would stab you in the back at the first hint of power was not his forte. That was why Luna told him that his position in Canterlot was part of her night guard. All he had to do was leave a clone with her, and he could honestly say he was employed by Equestria standards. Celestia still wasn't happy that her sister employed the same cult who clearly disliked her as part of her loyal guard. Even if Naruto's clone went out of his way not to interact with her. Cries decided to take a closer look at her hive over the weekend. If a princess changeling was born without her knowledge, she could quickly become a threat. Cries was in a foul mood. Naruto wisely didn't ask, knowing that he might become the target of her ire. Zabuza wasn't as smart. What the hell has your panties in a twist? Chrysalis snarled. An hour later. Haku looked out the window and saw a black and blue Zabuza. Who did he piss off this time? Jers was in a really foul mood and he attracted her attention, said Naruto. Aren't you supposed to be getting Tsunade? And go without Raymond. Besides, that booze hound Jiraiya hasn't even noticed that I ditched him with a changeling hours ago. The changeling in pony form came in. Jiraiya has located Tsunade. You better get back if you don't want your cover blown, said the changeling. Thanks Fred. Naruto shifted to his pony form and went into the air. A portal formed above him and he teleported straight to where the second changeling was. Kid, you sure take too long in the bathroom, said Jiraiya. That's what you think. So this is Tsunade. Said Naruto. Who's the brat Jiraiya? Name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. And we need you to come back to Konoha Granny, said Naruto, grinning. I'm not going to be Hokage, she said flatly. Not even to royally piss off that Dumbus Council and that creep Danzo. Said Naruto. Tsunade looked at Naruto. Now that is awfully tempting. And how exactly would my return piss off them? You'll be bringing us one step closer to restoring the Uzumaki clan status, and those old geezers refuse to let us be called a clan without 5 members at least, he replied. And how many do you have now? Including you, at least 3. We're still awaiting the blood work on one of the captured shinobi from Orochimaru's group. Boy was he pissed when he found out the old man was switched out with a fake. Grinned Naruto. Tsunade looked amused at that news. It wasn't often Orochimaru got played so easily. And by a greenhorn no less. As amusing as pissing off the elders sound, you'll have to make me a better offer. No way am I heading to Konoha that easily. How about the chance to examine a currently up-and-coming summons clan who rival the Kitsunes in terms of shape-shifting? Said Naruto deviously. He wasn't above throwing a minion into the fire, and Cries still wanted to know the effect switching between human and pony forms had on him. So far there were none, but she wanted to know the long-term side effects. How good are we talking about? She asked. Good enough this old pervert didn't notice I had ditched him in the last town and went back to Konoha for a few hours, said Naruto smugly. Jiraiya pointed an accusing finger at him. Damn it, I knew something was odd about you. You were able to read while walking. Bob's one of the few who can duplicate me perfectly, and we wanted to know if you would even notice. For a sage, you suck at detecting them, smirked Naruto. Tsunade barked with laughter. This kid was good if he pulled one on Jiraiya. It helped that the kid wasn't actively trying to drag her back. Though she obviously hadn't thought to ask exactly how he got here from Konoha. Personally I could care less if you became Hokage. As far as I can tell, this old lech just doesn't want to give up his lame-ass hobby, even though Cries kicked him out of the Konoha spiring single-handed. You could probably do a lot more good as the head of the Medic Corps, from what I've heard of your reputation. Jiraiya made a face. No way in hell was he going to be Hokage. He was not doing that much paperwork voluntarily. Not to mention he would be bound to the village. Seeing the look Naruto shot him, it was clear what the boy thought of his precious research. Now why would I want to become Hokage when I still have all those lovely ladies out there? Naruto held out a hand. 1. Because you've been serving little to no purpose of late to Konoha since Cries kicked you out of the spy game. 2. Because Gigi is getting on in years, and by the way Tsunade looks whenever the word Hokage is mentioned tells me she isn't that enthusiastic about the job. 3. If she did become Hokage, the council could reasonably claim favoritism for my claim to get the Uzumaki recognized as a clan, even if I had the bare minimum of members in active service. 4. Because Tsunade would be of greater use as the head of the hospital, which is in desperate need of being revamped last I checked. And 5. Because if you don't then I can give Cries the okay to sick the entire hive and the hive kids on your ass, because you ditched your duties as godfather to run around the country and never once checked in on me. And believe me, Fox agreed to be very cooperative if he got a chance to kick your ass. Tsunade was grinning like a shark. The boy had Jiraiya good, no doubt there. Besides, coming back to head the hospital didn't anger her nearly as much as being forced to take the cage seat, which she blamed for killing Dan and Nawaki. Of course there is another option, said Naruto. What's that? You two come back, fight it out, and the loser has to take the head. The two older shinobi looked at each other. Trust a child to come up with such a simple solution to a real problem. Sarutobi greeted the two Sannin with a grin. Naruto had told him through Cries about the idea he had over who would become Hokage. He really didn't care who took the seat so long as he got to retire finally. The sizable crowd gathered in training ground 82 to see who would become Hokage. Either way it would be quite a show, and Cries had a long list of things she wanted to discuss with whoever won the head. Jiraiya started things off with a swamp of the underworld technique. Tsunade jumped over it with ease and drained the water with a well-aimed punch. Then she started to spam water blasts at Jiraiya, who avoided them using Harijizo. Tsunade grinned and then unleashed her own favorite attack by cracking the ground from under Jiraiya. He squawked with surprise as he jumped to avoid another hit. Tsunade took her chance to shoot a stickier variation of the water she shot off earlier. It stuck to Jiraiya's spiked hair like some twisted child of glue and syrup. Jiraiya tried to remove it, but it quickly became apparent that he would have better luck if he simply regrew his hair. His hand was almost trapped in the sticky mess, but he managed to free it. Summoning Jutsu. Came the twin Cries as Tsunade realized what he planned to do before he finished the third sign. It helped that he was slightly slower from the goop on his hands. The good-sized toad and slug appeared and Cries snorted. And he thinks those offensive things are better than us? She said aloud. Naruto snickered beside her. He finally learned why the women hated frogs and toads near the hot springs. Apparently Jiraiya had the bad habit of watching while sitting on them and he had gotten caught enough times that the word had gone out. Winner, Tsunade. Declared Sarutobi. While Naruto was talking to Cries, Tsunade had hit Jiraiya with another glob of that sticky muck. Tsunade looked very pleased with herself. Jiraiya looked rather good in that hat. Even if Sarutobi confiscated the scene globe until he could be sure Jiraiya wouldn't cut and run. The few clans who had bathhouses made a note to place guards around them, since Jiraiya was going to be stuck in the village for the most part. Tsunade looked like the queen of the Leaf Village as she took control of the hospital. Hearing Cry's reports about how the staff treated Naruto, she occasionally came in pretending to have an injury and got thrown out 90% of the time. The other 10 actually took their duties seriously. Tsunade went to work putting those who failed the changeling test through remedial training. Meanwhile, Naruto took a week-long leave from shinobi duties, which required a form to be filled out in advance, so he could take a break in Ponyville. So what is this about? And why is it winter here when it's still fall in the elemental countries? Asked Karen. Beside her was Gaara carrying papers on his back. Karen actually liked being Princess Luna's permanent assistant. She got to sleep as long as she liked during the day, she was not a morning person, she got more respect than she ever did in grass, and Luna was an awesome boss. Sure, she had to help with the paperwork and all the little things Luna had trouble with, but that was a small price to pay. Naruto snickered. According to Rainbow Dash, because the younger Pegasus practice weather magic a lot, the weather here in Equestria is a lot shorter than back home. It's rarely the same as home, said Naruto. So why are we in Ponyville? Asked Gaara. Not that he minded, as he got along terrifyingly well with Pinky. And for some reason Rarity was one of the few ponies not freaked out by his status as the insane carrier of the one tail. Winter wrap up, said Naruto far too cheerfully. Huh? Came the dual responses. Ponyville was originally settled by Earth ponies, so each winter they take a day off to wrap it up with the help of a few Pegasus from Cloudsdale at least until a few settled in town. The unicorn ponies aren't allowed to use magic, and the Pegasus ponies are only allowed to use their wings to bring the southern birds back and to clear the clouds away. So what are we doing here? The mayor asked for help since they've had a lot of trouble cleaning up winter on time each year. And since we practically live in Ponyville anyway, I figured we could help out, explained Naruto. So what kind of jobs do they need done? Asked Karen. Let's see, bringing back the birds from the south, clearing the clouds, clearing the fields and planting seeds, cutting up the ice in the lakes so that they will melt properly, waking up the hibernating animals, making birds' nests so the birds have a place to stay, said Naruto. That doesn't sound too bad, said Gaara. Yeah, but according to the mayor, it's always a disorganized mess and a half. That's why they're always late each year. Sounds like a job for Twilight. According to Shining Armor, she hates snakes and none of the other jobs would fit her, said Karen. It surprises me you get along with her older brother better than you do her, said Gaara. She's OCD and a bit of a control freak. What more do I have to say? Said Naruto. You're the king of chaos and she's the princess of organization, snickered Karen. Wasn't there a creature in Equestria who symbolizes chaos and disorder? You mean Discord? Luna said if he ever woke up we would probably get along like a building on fire because we both love pranks. Thanks for introducing us, by the way. Princess Luna is an awesome boss, said Karen. She had trouble keeping assistants, and I figured it would be easier for us if you weren't around when the grass shinobi came to investigate what happened to you. And did they come? Asked Karen. They bought that bullshit excuse that you got killed by bandits. Yet another reason I like Konoha. Or Equestria, I suppose, since I kinda like living here and reverse summoning is such a pain to do every day. Reverse summoning is kinda boring, said Naruto. This coming from the only person able to go between worlds without using the summoning, said Gaara snorting. So which job are you taking? Asked Karen. Hang on, said Naruto. He threw a bit up in the air and caught it. I'll go help Rainbow Dash. I'll go help Rarity. I'm a fair hand at arts and crafts, said Gaara. I'll try ice skating first, but if that doesn't work I'll go help with the animals, said Karen. Naruto watched with amusement as Twilight went bonkers trying to find a way to help clean up winter. She even tried to use magic to help out with Applejack's team. Probably Spike's idea of helping. Finally Twilight got her act together and managed to get things back under control. It may have taken all night, but they managed to get winter cleaned up on time. My name is Uzumaki Karen. I used to be a normal genin of the Grass Village until a chance encounter at my second exam in Konoha. There, I was found by the first living remnant of my clan that I had seen in nearly 4 years. That was when my life was changed. For Naruto, I became the personal assistant to an actual princess. Sure, she was a pony, but it was the thought that counted. And she was by far the best boss I had ever worked with. I could sleep as late as I wanted, and I rarely had to get up in the mornings because my boss only did a real work in either the late afternoon or early night. For someone who hated mornings it was the best thing you could ask for. Luna was the best boss I could ask for. Sure, helping with the paperwork was a pain in the ass, but I wasn't guarding her or trying to fight off assassins day and night. Plus she was so nice to me. My day-to-day life had taken a turn for the best, as I happily helped Luna with her paperwork each night, as well as acted as messenger. On my time off, she even taught me magic, which was their version of chakra. I love my life now, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Arapov. My name is Sabaku no Gaara, the youngest child of the now deceased 4th Kazekage. For the longest time, I had been alone, even with my siblings around. I was feared and considered a monster by everyone because I couldn't let anyone come close. That all changed when Naruto Uzumaki entered my life. He dragged me out of my dark lonely void and into the bright light. He accepted my darkness and gave me more light than I had ever had before. He introduced me to a whole new world where the pain of loneliness never came back. I didn't mind being given the form of a pony if it meant having friends like Pinky, Fluttershy and Rarity. Pinky opened up a whole world of laughter, bringing joy into my small world. She showed me how to play harmless pranks which gave me a different form of attention instead of killing others. She saw my darkness and accepted it without question. Rarity gave me the chance to use my powers over sand for good after I learned how to combine it in certain ways to make gems. She let me help and work beside her without a single complaint about my mistakes, instead she gently corrected them. My crafts hobby had finally paid off. Fluttershy, she treated me like an abused animal and managed to help me learn how to interact with others gently rather than throwing me in the deep end. It was thanks to her that my relationship with my sister and later my brother had improved in leaps and bounds. I will never be able to thank Naruto enough for his help in bringing me to Equestria. Or for saving me from true darkness. Chrysalis Pav. My name is Queen Chrysalis. For as long as I could remember, I was destined to be the ruler of the Changeling Hive. I always believed that I would follow in the footsteps of all the other queens and survive until another princess appeared to challenge me and devour my body, much like I had the previous queen. All that changed because of a child who performed the most dangerous of acts next to reviving the dead, even partially. An unbound summons. Naruto Uzumaki gave me a new direction for my life by summoning me. Through him, I was able to feed my hive without harming others, causing it to expand in leaps and bounds. It was because of him that our standing in the summons realm, which had been among the top of the lowest parts, had shot through the roof to that of a proper clan. He gave us hope to be more than mere leeches and tricksters. And for that, we will serve him faithfully until the day here his line dies. And now, back to the story. Chrysalis scowled when she saw the reports. There was only one explanation for the pony abductions. Because of how sweet and friendly the ponies were in general, they were the best source of love in the summons realm. Which made them prime targets for changelings. Or in this case, a rogue changeling hive. The thing that made no sense was the fact that changelings don't form a new hive without showing signs first, plus there was the fact that a good portion of new changelings vanished sometime during the Chunin invasion. She looked at Bob. I want an investigation done. 50 changelings don't just up and vanish, especially those recently hatched. Bob hissed in agreement. He was the one elected to act as Cry's assistant. Naruto had heard offhand from Rainbow Dash about a flying competition, and as a fan of flight in general, he immediately signed up. What he wasn't expecting was for the rarity of all ponies to show up with fake wings and showboats like that. It simply wasn't like her. Fortunately, Rainbow was able to rescue her and the Wonderbolts who got caught up in the mess, using a technique Cry's had banned within Konoha limits unless otherwise stated. Naruto had a mission to Snow next week after the event and he had taken Hinata, Choji and Haku with him. It took them a month, but they managed to get home after the mess caused by the uncle of their secondary client, the first being her assistant and having to free another country from tyranny. In the words of Naruto, at least their missions were never boring. So what's happening in Ponyville today? Asked Naruto. He had come to visit Gaara, who practically lived in Ponyville these days. It was either that or worry about the assassins trying to kill the cage candidate. See for yourself, said Gaara. He had woken up this morning to find bubblegum pink clouds in the sky, which was definitely not normal. Naruto flew up to touch one, and his hoof came back sticky. He licked it experimentally and said how weird this tastes sweet. Using his wings, he brought a few of the clouds down. Try this, he said. Candy, definitely, but I can't tell what kind. And there is an undercurrent hint of chocolate milk in it, said Gaara. The clouds suddenly started to rain, and the two drank. Definitely chocolate milk. Grab some glasses and let's enjoy this, said Gaara grinning. You're on. They both laughed when they saw Rainbow crash into a cloud. Because she tended to get up later than them, they had known about the issue long before she was up. Since both of them had long since acquired a taste for the apples from Applejack's family farm, they went to check on their friends. Naruto grinned when he saw the fluffy pink clouds. Banzai! He cried, jumping into the clouds with glee. Gaara laughed and shook his head. Is he alright? Asked Applejack. The clouds are some form of candy and filled with chocolate milk. We found out this morning. I think Naruto is in the mood to have a sugar rush, said Gaara chuckling. But Cry's not here to stop him, I can see why, laughed Applejack. Over the course of several months, they had gotten to know Cry's almost as well as they did Naruto. This was mostly because she acted like his older sister, often dragging him home by the ear if he stayed too late. She was polite, if a bit distant with Twilight and the others, though she wasn't a big fan of Celestia for some reason. According to Naruto, she barely tolerated Luna as it was. Still, when Twilight and her friends were called to Canterlot by Celestia, Naruto was asked to come as well. Gaara stayed behind to help clean up the mess with Big Macintosh. So Discord, the spirit of chaos, is awake again. Princess Celestia wants us to put him back into stone, said Twilight. Naruto had issues with people who brown-nosed so much, mainly because Sakura Haruno used to do that a lot to garner favor with the teachers, and the civilian council bent over backwards to curry favor with the last Uchiha. Twilight was tolerable in small doses, but something about her gave him headaches. Cries pinned that problem to the fact Naruto was a chaotic, sporadic person, while Twilight was an OCD and workaholic type. The two simply didn't mesh at all. "Mind if I try to have a talk with him first?" asked Naruto. If he was right, then Discord wouldn't be as big of an issue as Celestia seemed to believe. "We're heading to the maze garden in 5 minutes. You have that long until we try and retrieve the elements," said Twilight. "More than enough time for what I have in mind," said Naruto. He portaled to the gardens. "So little Pegasus Pony thinks he can deal with the great Discord," said the Draconequus. He wasn't terribly impressed with the colt. "Actually, I was just curious as to whether you could jump from the summons realm to the shinobi realm, or if you needed help to do so," asked Naruto. Discord blinked. That wasn't what he was expecting. "I can jump between dimensions without any help." "Why?" "I happen to know a certain Sannin who thinks it's funny to steal bodies and could use a reminder that chaos is fun. Plus very few people would care if you rained chocolate milk in his base." "And what do you get in exchange for this?" he asked. The offer was intriguing, and shinobi were more fun to annoy than ponies. Plus they didn't have any to turn him to stone again. Naruto grinned, and Discord felt the boy was more of a kindred spirit than he had originally guessed. "The guy tried to kill someone who treats me like his own grandson, and I dislike him on general principles. Besides, those cotton candy rain clouds that shower chocolate milk that you create are awesome. It's nice to finally meet someone who appreciates my brand of chaos," smirked Discord. "Care to get started, or do you want to deal with Ms. OCD and the prissy princess some more?" "Who are those two?" asked Discord, knowing this would amuse him to the end. "A unicorn who wears the crown and has a star on her flank and Celestia," replied Naruto. Discord laughed long and hard at that. "Tell them that if they want their precious elements back, that the riddle is still in effect. I'm not sticking around long enough for them to turn me into stone again." "Fair enough," said Naruto grinning. The Draconequus vanished with a pop just as Twilight was coming to the garden with the others. "Where did he go?" she asked. "Send him to my world. He's off to annoy someone else and not get turned to stone," said Naruto. "You sent him to the elemental countries?" said Applejack, highly amused. "Yup. He's off to prank a certain snake contractor since the man got on my nerves. Since most of his bases are underground, from what I heard, it will be interesting how he deals with chocolate milk rain and cotton candy clouds when he's trying to hide." "You sent Discord, the spirit of chaos and disharmony to Odo," said Cries. She wasn't sure she was hearing things right at first. "Yeah, can you imagine the look on Alarachi's face when he realizes there are cotton candy clouds raining chocolate milk in his bases?" Chrysalis rubbed her head. "Naruto could be a headache and a half if given the chance." "Right. Have you heard from Gaara lately?" "You mean how he supervised that trip to Canterlot with Miss Chirali and ended up with his cutie mark changing?" "Yeah, why?" "Gaara had come into contact with an odd crystal shard while helping Miss Chirali with her class. The end result was that his cutie mark suddenly changed from his old gore to a crystal, shaped like the shard that had fallen on him, rising from waves of sand. According to a baffled Celestia, it meant that his special talent had changed. Gaara recently retested his chakra affinity, and to the shock of his siblings, it was discovered that he had equal amounts of lightning and earth. According to records of chakra alignments, that meant he had the possible affinity towards a rare chakra alignment known as, or the crystal element. Considering the shard he touched came from a lost kingdom known as the Crystal Empire, it made sense that he might have that element hidden in his blood. Naruto would have to retest his elemental alignment if his special talent changed, though according to Gaara the first talent, controlling his sand, was still in effect. The controls simply shot up. Jurors believed that the same would happen to Naruto, only the cost of portaling would go down somewhat. Because they were the only ones who became ponies, she had no idea if this was a perk of having two souls in one body or not, nor was she able to test it. Sasuke stared out the window of his apartment. The dead last and his freaky girlfriend Cries were surpassing him with every step they took, and he was being held back by these stupid villagers. Kakashi refused to train him after he nearly killed Sakura during a training accident, not realizing how close she was to being killed. He had been stuck doing crappy teamwork exercises for weeks now. He was about to continue brooding when he heard someone making a racket outside his window with a flute. And that was when things turned interesting. Naruto was in the hospital after Sasuke had knocked her out, and once awakened she informed the Anbu that he had run away. It had taken an hour for them to figure out which direction, and after that they immediately assembled a small team to retrieve him before he could make contact with Orochimaru. Naruto was in that team, along with Cries and surprisingly enough Princess Luna. Apparently the form swap worked both ways, as Luna appeared to be human despite not being a changeling. Cries had never realized that it was easier for her to take human form in Konoha than it was in Equestria, and afterwards did a series of experiments. Their final conclusion was that the portal would turn anyone into the native species of the world they were in, or make it easier to maintain that form. As changelings and ponies weren't native to Konoha, it meant that they would take human form. Humans would be able to take the form of whatever they had a summoning contract with. As was the case with Gaara and Karen, who had the minor contract to the ponies in general. Naruto, who had the changeling contract, took the pony form, as it would be difficult for him to maintain the changeling form naturally, despite having the transformation powers of a kitsune. Jiraiya stood before the team. Alright, in this instance you will be following Naruto and Shikamaru's orders. Your mission is to retrieve the Uchiha by any means necessary. If he proves to be a traitor, you are authorized to kill on sight, and if possible bring back his eyes. We aren't going to let another Orochimaru out into the world, especially one with an active Sharingan, said Jiraiya flatly. It was because of the kill on sight order if Sasuke had defected willingly that none of those who worshipped the Uchiha had been picked. Cries stood before them looking serious. Because of who we are dealing with, there will be backup if needed. You won't recognize who they are, as they are summoned. They will be wearing a leaf insignia or the traditional Uzumaki swirl somewhere visible on their clothes. What is the Uzumaki swirl? Asked Kiba. Naruto pointed at the swirl on his shirt, which he always had on him. This is the Uzumaki clan symbol. Because the backup is contracted to Naruto, they are wearing his clan symbol on them at all times. Just because his family has diminished doesn't mean his clan has died, explained Cries. In any case, you are to retrieve the Sharingan if possible with the brat being alive or not, said Jiraiya. Hi. Dismissed, and good luck, said Jiraiya. The retrieval mission had begun. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Sakura Demon Alchemist for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.